was. Have y'all already been having a good time from yesterday? I know, I had a good time too. Well, we're going to be starting off the day with a few panelists that are going to be talking about young people involved in politics. So we're going to be watching a video to introduce them, and they'll be coming up in just a second. Good morning, you guys.
Good
Welcome.
morning.
How are
Good
y'all
morning.
feeling?
Fantastic.
I'm excited to be here with you guys. So we were going to talk a little bit today about being young and involved in politics, and I know this is something you are all passionate about. So I was wondering if all of y'all could just tell me a little bit about what y'all do and if y'all were involved at a young age or what made y'all passionate about politics.
Sure. So, hi everyone, my name is Audrey Soul, and I actually have the very distinct honor of being a couple of things. So first, I am the great state senator's wife. Oh my gosh, whoa, not her wife. Scratch that. I am Senator Ted Cruz's niece. Not his wife in the least bit. But I'm not even married, so I don't know why wife came out, but I don't know, is anybody out there? Anyways, whatever. No, but I actually also have the very distinct honor of being the communications and donor relations manager at Mercury One, which is Glenn Beck's nonprofit. And so I have been, and so I have been really deeply rooted in politics since a very, very young age. Even when back I was like, oh my gosh, politics is so not cool. This is annoying. I have to go to another one of Ted Cruz's events. But as you guys saw last night, he is on fire for our country. He is on fire for you guys, and I saw that at a very young age, and it made me so excited. And I look around this room, and I am inspired by seeing each and every one of your faces, because we are sitting at the precipice and at the forefront of the greatest future leaders of this country. And I am so excited to see what this group of human beings has to offer for the rest of the country.
That's awesome.
So good.
Well, my name is Lily Kate. Christian gave me a really nice shout out last night, and as he kind of said, I do social media, so I'm with Turning Point USA. Charlie Kirk will be coming to speak later, so exciting. I actually am now a PragerU influencer. I was homeschooled. I'm not going, yeah, come on, homeschoolers, where are you at? Yeah! The absolute best way to be. I'm not going to college. I'm a public speaker, small business owner, and I just had an interview yesterday with a tech company in Austin because big tech is the issue of our time. Gen Z, if we drop the ball on fighting big tech, that's a stain. We need to fight that, and we need young people in big tech, and that's why I'm pursuing that right now. So that's what I'm doing. I hope to see everyone here get involved with big tech and go work there. We need to go infiltrate that, because soon enough, there's going to be a full room of conservatives in big tech who are going to be making the decisions about free speech. Because when I tell you I've been censored on TikTok, shadow banned on Instagram, lost my full-time living as a YouTuber because I didn't wear a mask in a video when I went to Target, we gotta fight this, guys. We gotta do it, and that's my mission.
Hey y'all, my name is Joel Castro. I'm a city councilman just south of Houston in a town called Alvin. I was elected to city council when I was 18, serving as mayor pro tem for the city. Thank you. And thank you. Now I'm a big boy now. I'm 22, don't have a bedtime, so I'm good. And so what I'm here for, and I'm also with an organization called Run Gen Z, and so what we're here for is to inspire the next generation of conservative trailblazers to run and win for public office. And I look around this room and I see so many future elected officials here that will just pave the path forward and put America back on track for a better future. So I'm excited to get to meet y'all.
Well, my name is Brandon Kaiser. I am the state chair for the Texas Federation of College Republicans. I think some of our members are in the audience. I see one right here. Real quick, raise your hand if you're in college here. Now, keep your hand raised if you're in college Republicans at your university. So everybody just put down your hand. Find me later. Either we're going to connect you with your local college Republican chapter or we're going to help you start one, okay? Because that's so important on college campuses. That's my big thing, is helping college students have, to borrow a word from the left, a safe space for conservatives, a place where we can get together, especially on some of our more liberal campuses like UT or Texas State, and also be able to facilitate. I heard some hisses out there. I think that was because I said UT. But help facilitate kind of organizing and keeping people from straying from the conservative beliefs that a lot of people were raised up in when they go to university and college campuses.
That is so good, guys. And I think something that I see on this stage is that there are so many gifts, so many talents, and so many people being used in such different ways. And I know sometimes it can feel like we have to be made or created a certain way, but it shows that you can be involved in college. You can be involved being homeschooled and not involved in college. You can be used in so many different ways, and I see so many different giftings. And so I know probably each of us can resonate with someone a little more. And so I think that's such a beautiful thing of having such a variety. So I wanted to ask you, Joel. So you said you were elected at 18, which is very young. I told him earlier, I was like, I was working at Chick-fil-A at 18. I was saying my pleasure. I'm like, wow, I am impressed. Well, I would like to know a little bit about that. How was that process? And what made you want to run at such a young age and have the courage to do that?
Yeah, so I just started my third semester of college, and one of the questions one of the professors asked was, what was your first job? And I said, city councilman. So it was pretty awkward. And so, remind me, what was your question again?
I was just asking, so what led up to that? What gave you the courage to want to do that?
So I always had an interest in politics. So I remember as a kid, my dad would just started like getting aggravated and yelling at the TV, and I'm thinking, what the heck is he yelling at the TV for? And so I was listening, and it was back when Barack Obama was president, and that's right. And it was Barack Obama trying to take away our Second Amendment, and I was thinking to myself, I was in junior high, and I thought to myself, that can't be right. I mean, he can't do that. And so I started listening to the news. I started reading the news, started watching the news, started getting involved politically. And so in high school, I got involved. I met a lot of our local leaders, got involved in the party. And in high school, my senior year, I got involved in my mayor's re-election campaign. And thank you. Local elections matter more than everything, by the way. That's right. We have seen all throughout school boards and city councils where liberals are trying to indoctrinate us with their leftist agenda with mass mandates, government shutdowns, and we've seen that doesn't work. But, ma'am? Yes, that too, critical race theory, yes. And so I decided that I'm going to do everything I can to inspire my generation. So I got elected, 7 months after graduating high school, someone asked me, our city councilman resigned and said, hey, you should think about running for city council. I said, there's no way in heck that anyone would vote for an 18-year-old, especially in Alvin. And they're like, no, you need to think about it. So I did, and I prayed about it, and I talked with my bishop, and we decided that, I got nothing else to lose. So I decided I was going to run, and I got elected. Thank you. I had two opponents. They're phenomenal guys. Got reelected with 86% of the vote a couple years ago, and now serving as mayor pro tem. But the fact of the matter is that everyone is wanting the generational change in leadership. We've seen all throughout history. We're in a church, so it's safe to say that some of the apostles that Jesus called were the same age as we are right now. Are some of our founding fathers that created a divine document and they were inspired by God to create this nation were the same age as we are. Here in Texas, Sam Houston, the first president of Texas. That's right. When he was in Tennessee, he got elected at 24 as district attorney. So inspirational leaders that actually meant something, all got involved in the same age we're at right now. And so that's why it's time for us to step up, get involved, and put America back on track.
That was so good. Wow. And even hearing that, it makes me think, I love how you mentioned about how God has used different people throughout time. He used people in the Bible that were young. There's been people that have been elected. And it even makes me think of a scripture. It's 1 Timothy 4:12, and it talks about how we shouldn't despise our youth. And so I know that any age, and it just shows that God really can use you, and you're not limited because of your age. So that was just such a great takeaway. Thank you, Joel. Well, I would also like to hear a little bit from Lily Kate. So Lily Kate is just as beautiful on the inside as she is on the outside, and she is an influencer, and she uses things like TikTok and different things like that. So a little bit earlier, she mentioned about big tech. So I was wondering, I would like Lily Kate, if you would explain a little bit about why you're so passionate about that and what it's like being an influencer. What are some of your takeaways?
Sure. Well, I'm a firm believer that within 5 years, big tech is going to be more powerful than the government. And the youth has to be involved. We have to be involved. We need to go work in big tech companies. Look, I was a YouTuber for my whole high school career, and as I said, I made a full-time living off of that. I went to Hollywood, I was in LA, I went to Orlando a lot. I've seen all the influencers, I've been at their houses, I've seen all the people who can verify your account in just one click, give you a blue check mark. These people are not conservatives. They need to be conservatives because tech is absolutely the future. And we need to infiltrate that, and we need to turn the tide back because, just go build your own internet. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. So we need to really, really, really aim to be involved. We need to go work at these companies. We need to go work at Facebook. We need to go work at Instagram, work at TikTok, work at these data storage companies. All of the different types of companies. Go to Austin, figure it out, guys, because it's also really lucrative to work in tech right now. So if you're looking for money, you will definitely be able to get some money by doing it. But my biggest takeaways as an influencer, I used to let numbers affect me a whole lot, right? I've lost like 30,000 followers over all of my social media just because I came out as a conservative, which I've always been a Christian conservative. I just didn't talk about it. So now I have a podcast and I own a ministry as well. And I'd have to say, as ironic as it sounds, everybody, we need to fight for big tech and fight for social media, absolutely. But something that they can't, and they're trying to take away from you, is a good, happy, wonderful, fulfilling life. And if there's one thing that I've learned, is that real life matters so much more, okay? I came back, I'm in a relationship now with a guy that I want to marry. I want to have children. I'm living a fulfilling life that people don't even see on my social media. So guys, be on social media, fight for it, but my biggest takeaway and my biggest advice to you is be a good citizen, go to church, get married, have children, live a good life, vote, be involved in your community, serve your country with an obligation because there's no one that can take that away from you, and you need to exercise your rights while you have them. Go shoot a gun, go pray at your local Planned Parenthood. There you go. Honor your country and serve it in the best way that you can because it is the culture that's going to make a difference.
Wow. Wow. I am so impressed. I'm like, I just keep hearing such good things up here. Y'all are fantastic. And it's, I think it's pretty incredible it's such a good reminder is that there's certain things that matter in life and that are fulfilling. And those are your relationships with others, loving other people, loving God, having values. And it's always good to stand up for what you believe in. And I know it must be more fulfilling to be standing up for what you believe in on your social media platforms and lose followers at times than to have to remain silent. And it's never a fulfilling thing it's a good thing to feel like you're fully known, and being able to just talk about what you believe in is a beautiful thing. And so I really honor and respect that. Next up, I was going to ask Brandon. So he is actually the state chair for the Federation of College Republicans. I believe I said that right. Was that correct? Wow, I'm impressed with myself now. Well, he is involved in that. So would you tell me a little bit about that and what that has been like for you?
Yeah, so I first got involved late in my first semester, freshman year. Joined the local Sam Houston State chapter. And decided to run for chapter chair, and I was blessed to win that going into sophomore year. And then from there, I became grassroots director for the state, and then political director. And then when my predecessor, he had to resign to actually go take a job at the White House, I got in on a special election and became state chair. And so it's been a real pleasure and a privilege for me. And I would just highly encourage anybody in college to join College Republicans.
That's so good. That's so good, Brandon. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that. So you're involved a lot on college campuses, and as we know, a lot of the teachers often are very liberal. A lot of the textbooks are very liberal, and it's challenging. What would be, you say, is the greatest challenge of being involved on college campuses, and what do you feel is the most fulfilling part?
I would, and some of this obviously varies depending on campus. You know, Sam, we're blessed to relatively not face a lot of adversity, but somewhere like UT, a lot of it is just being canceled, I think one of the biggest things you face, and beyond that, actual like threats of violence against you on some of these campuses. I know Texas State, some of our members in past years would have like very credible threats of violence, like to the point of death, made against them, just for being conservatives, and that is by far, I think, the biggest threat that you face. And what was the second part of that? Sorry.
And what do you feel like is the most fulfilling part?
The most fulfilling thing, though, is when you stand for what you believe and stand for what is right. There's no other feeling like that. When you're not compromising on your principles, that is the best feeling, and that I would never want to compromise on my principles in order to kowtow to, the liberal.
It's really true. Feels good.
Amen.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Brandon. Wow. Well, I also wanted to ask Miss Audrey. She's also as beautiful on the inside as outside. So she is actually involved with Glenn Beck's nonprofit, and as we know, it's a huge crisis going on in Afghanistan. And so y'all have really been able to help. So would you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yes, thank you. So as you guys know, and as we've heard even last night, what's happening in Afghanistan is more than a catastrophic failure on our administration. And it is horrible, and seeing what is going on over there is just something that us as Americans, it should just never be happening, right? And so Glenn Beck I have the distinct honor of being on his team at Mercury One. And Mercury One is a nonprofit dedicated to restoring the human spirit through humanitarian aid, disaster relief, and education. And we do some really awesome things over there. We've just opened a museum, and actually Lily Kate got to come to one of our 2-week summer intensive seminars on history because we value our American history. And as you guys know, it's in the process of being rewritten, and we are doing everything in our power to make sure that that does not happen and it remains intact. But I will tell you, so we're actually celebrating 10 years of Mercury One this year, and 10 years ago we launched a mission called the Nazarene Fund. And the Nazarene Fund helps save persecuted Christians in the Middle East and around the world. And I guess Wednesday of last week, Glenn was on air, and all of this was going on in Afghanistan, and he said, you know what, I challenge America. I challenge you guys to help. And so he put a $20 million goal, just said it on air, and us as a 14-person staff, we were like, oh my gosh, okay, here go the phones. And the phone started ringing off the hook, and you talk about the goodness of the American people. We raised, in 2 days, we're at over $30 million for the people in Afghanistan. And that is a true testament of who we are as Americans, that when we see our people in trouble, we are the first to go and help. Despite what any administration tells us is right or what to do, we know inherently that we are there to fight, and we are there to save our troops, our people, and our allies, because that is who we are as America, and no one can take that away from us. And so we are working tirelessly to try to save these people. You guys have seen the videos, you've seen the pictures. They're hanging on by a thread because freedom is worth fighting for.
Wow, it's so good. It's just such a reminder to me. I think it's a common message that we're hearing up here today, is how fulfilling it is to have values, to care about others, and to do the right thing. And even though at times it's difficult and challenging because it's against our culture, it's so important, and at the end of the day, that's something that can't be taken away. I also wanted to ask y'all, so before we go, what would be one piece of advice you would like to give each person, or just the audience and young people that want to be involved in politics? Or maybe it's just in general, maybe it's just a little life advice that you'd have. It could be anything. What is one thing you'd want to give each person?
So I'll jump in really quick and I'll say, stay true to yourself. Stay who you are. Stay firm on your convictions, because nobody can change your desire to make change. And like I said earlier, and like you said before, don't let anybody look down on you because of your age, because this group is the group that's going to change the world. I see it. And it's not just you guys, it's your friends, and go tell people, because this is incredible. This is a country worth fighting for, and you guys are going to make a difference. And I'm excited and inspired to be here, and honored just to see your faces and see the excitement that you guys have for the mission of our country. We are in dark times, and morning comes in the evening, but joy comes in the morning, and I am inspired and excited to see what that means with this group.
Yeah, awesome. I have two major pieces of advice. One of them is applicable now, and one of them is applicable within the next 20 years for probably most people in this room. The first one is, as conservatives, if we want to know our rights, and we want to know the freedoms we have, and we want to know the things that are protected, I've talked to too many of you who haven't read our Constitution, who haven't read the Declaration of Independence, or the Bill of Rights. You haven't read any of the Federalist Papers, and that is something that you need to do now. That is something you need to do at home on your free time, because if you want to know the rights that they're trying to take away from you, you have to know what those rights are. So, another thing is, everyone here, I assume you've thought about the scariness of possibly being a parent one day. I know I definitely think about it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm 19, I don't need kids yet. But if you really want to pass freedom down, you know, everybody knows when Ronald Reagan said, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. But you know what he said after that? He said, if we want to ensure that freedom is continued to be passed down, we need to define freedom and give our children the ability and the skills and the adequate fundamental tools to be able to fight for their freedom. And I can tell you, the best way to do that is to homeschool your future children, okay? As future parents, we need to know our founding documents. We need to read them at least once a year, okay? And you need to homeschool your children. That's my advice to you guys. I'm excited for this. I'm excited for you all. And I'm excited to link arms with each and every one of you and possibly get some of you on my podcast.
I'll be real quick. So I have two pieces of advice. First, stay true to yourself, what Audrey said. That's so important. And in everything you do, try to emulate Christ. We need more Christ-like leaders right now, especially in our generation. And secondly, the possibility of a future congressman, a future state rep, or even a future governor, or maybe even a future president in this room is very high. So the time is now to run for office. If I can do it, you can do it too. So my second piece of advice would be to run for office.
Well, I'd just like to emulate everything that has been said before, especially with Joel, and showing Christ through your actions. And in addition to running for office, I'd say even if you don't want to run for office, even if that's not your calling in life, help those who do have that calling. Get involved and help elect good, solid, Christian Republicans who are going to stand up for your values.
Wow. That was so good, you guys. Thank you so much for coming up here. I truly enjoyed it. Can we give them a round of applause? Thank you guys so much.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank y'all.
Thank
Have
y'all.
a wonderful day.
Weren't they wonderful? I learned a lot. I was like, wow. Well, next up, we are going to be having the conservative author, Tanner Roberts. He's fantastic coming up.
All right. All right. Well, I want to thank Texas Youth Summit for having me out again, third year in a row. And can we give a big hand to the Texas Youth Summit staff, because they have been awesome putting this together. I mean, you guys are doing great. It's amazing. It's very impressive. But what's more impressive is all you guys out here. I mean, it's 9 a.m. on a Saturday. You 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds out here because you give a crap about this country more than people 2 or 3 times your age. So that's impressive. Good for y'all. I mean, you know what I was doing at that age on a Saturday morning? I was asleep. And I was getting woken up by my dad to go do the lawn. And then I would purposely do a terrible job, so he ended up having to hire a lawn service. I took the Biden approach, just too tired, too incompetent, hoping they'll get somebody else to do the job. But anyway, you know, before we really begin today, I want to talk about something that's actually very important to me. It's something that happened the second you guys walked in here. It's going to happen the second you guys leave. It's happening right now. And you know, we hear a lot about threats to our democracy, right? The biggest threats to our democracy. Well, this is actually one of the biggest threats to our God-given rights, and that's censorship, especially for y'all's generation. Now, I'm a conservative author. I've written 2 books with a company called Defiance Press. And when you write conservative books for a company called Defiance Press, you learn about censorship pretty dang quick. Not only that, but I also manage social media pages with about over 200,000 followers on them. I had one account, over 125,000 followers on there, put up an innocent post, and then my whole account got deleted, just boom. You know, it's unfortunate, but now I have to deal with some woke pink-haired staffer at Facebook to try to get my account reinstated, and you know what? It's probably not going to. It's probably not going to. But, you know, the question is what has led us to these levels of censorship? And I think that we have a culture right now where there is such an eager obedience. People so eager to be obedient. And we saw this exacerbated during COVID, right? You got people in their cars driving by themselves wearing masks because they're so eager to be obedient. You got people masking their young children because they're so eager to be obedient. You got people that are willing to throw away their rights in service to the government because they're so eager to be obedient. It's weak, it's sad, and it's pathetic. But you know, it's not so unbelievable that many of these obedient types want government and big tech to control the dissemination of information. You know, it's not unbelievable. And you know, these big tech platforms, these companies, they don't like facts, especially the inconvenient ones. They see them as hate facts, mean facts, facts that'll upset how somebody feels. And guys, we live in a generation where it doesn't matter what you know to be true, it's what you feel to be true. And so when you go against those feelings, you're the one censored. You're the one silenced. Let me tell you something about big tech. These guys are supposed to be neutral service providers. Neutral service providers, not lackeys for the state. So remember when the Hunter Biden story broke out before the election? And none of these platforms allowed the New York Post to share the story. They didn't allow you to share the story. They didn't allow any of it. Now, they're supposed to be neutral service providers. Imagine if your wireless carrier behaved in the same way. What if they behaved in the same way? They're neutral service providers. What if you're on the phone talking to your buddy and said, hey, did you see that crackhead and his pictures on his laptop? And AT&T says, no, I'm going to end that call. Or what if you're even talking about something else, saying, I don't think masks are effective for my 4-year-old daughter. AT&T doesn't like it. They shut off the call. Guys, it sounds ridiculous, but we are closer to that than ever. They're neutral service providers. But now these neutral service providers have become extensions of government enforcement, and that's the scariest thing about it. But most Americans don't care, or at least are ignorant to censorship. Some even support it. Why? Because we are a bored nation. We are a prosperous, bored nation that doesn't face any kind of existential threat within our borders, so we make them up. The left conjures up enemies, because if you don't have enemies, you don't have victims. And if you don't have victims, you don't have special privileges. You don't have dependency. So, you know, common question I get is, you know, what's America's biggest problem? Why do we allow censorship? And I think we have become a very dependent nation. We're very dependent. We got people that have never owned a gun because they depend on government for protection, but wouldn't know how to protect themselves from government. We've got people that would lose their minds if you took away their sports, their Netflix, their TikTok dances, because they depend on mindless entertainment rather than critical thinking. We have people who depend on affirmations from other people because on their behavioral flaws, because they don't want to change who they are for the better. And we have people who depend on politicians for their salvation because we've abandoned religion and we've abandoned our principles. But that's not us. You know, that's not us. What does victory look like against censorship? I'm a different opinion than y'all guys. I don't see Getter, Parler, Telegram. I don't see that as a victory. I like to debate. I don't know about y'all. I like to debate. I don't want to be on a platform where I think the same as everybody else, because not only does that leave little room to debate, it leaves little room to influence somebody. And you know, we want to have a strong presence where we can be the most influential. So if you're going to be influential, you need to have aspirations. Let me ask you guys, anybody here thought of writing a book, becoming a politician, getting into politics? Come on, raise them. Let's see it. There you go. All right, look around, guys. We have the influence. We have the power. We just got to support each other in that. That's the best way to combat censorship, is to flood these outlets with our influence. And we've got to support each other because the left is very good at it. The left is very good. Look at Cuomo. The guy was groping women and killing nursing home residents, and they're giving him a book deal and an Emmy. That's how much they support. I'm not saying support to no fault, but I'm just showing you what we're up against. And we just can't sit back and take this anymore. We can't accept the status quo anymore. They are colluding. Government, media, big tech, education, they are colluding against your influence. That should piss everybody off in this room. Not just this room, but this whole country. I mean, we have troops out there dying for our God-given rights. Liberals don't care about our rights. They don't care about the sacrifices. They're going to censor you anyway. So you guys going to sit back there, your generation, you guys, Y'all gonna sit back and just take it? Nope. Be silenced? Guys, we gotta get up. We gotta stand up. And we can't give up. You are facing unprecedented amounts of censorship. And we can either ignore it, or we can go along with it, or we can fight against it. And I hope you guys fight against it. Thank you guys. I appreciate your time this morning. Come by my booth outside. Charlie Kirk is next. Thank y'all.
Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk's running the White House, folks.
I want to thank Charlie. He's an incredible guy. His spirit, his love of this country. He's done an amazing job.
We are going to fight for freedom on campuses across the country.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Great to see everybody this morning. I got to tell you, Christian, having this many young people at 9:40 on a Saturday morning is quite an accomplishment.
Well, they're excited to see you, Charlie. And Charlie, I don't think you really need an introduction, but thank you for starting a great youth movement throughout the country, and you're also working in churches now. You've started Turning Point Faith. You're newly married.
Yes. So let me tell you this for all the young people out there is get married early and have lots of children and reject everything that secular culture is telling you is a lie. Seriously. Like, oh, I need to go pursue my career. That's a bunch of garbage. Go find a godly person who loves the Lord, who is obedient and loyal to you, and marry them. And reject all this hookup culture garbage and get married early.
And Charlie, I think, is the right type of conservative that we want to have here at this conference. What he stands for, his values, who he is, and God's really using you, Charlie. So just thankful for who you are, man. Like, you're a real rock star, and God's using you in his kingdom. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And Christian, you're doing a great job. And it's so good to see so many young faces here and Turning Point chapter leaders. And if you're not yet involved with Turning Point USA, we have a table out there. We'd love to have you do that. Also, if anyone lives near Waco, I think it's October 13th, is that right? October 12th or 13th? I don't even know if we've announced it yet. 13th? We will be at Baylor University speaking, and so that'll be a lot of fun. So all of you are welcome. But look, we want to explore a lot of important things. I asked Christian to come up here. I actually enjoy the back and forth. I'd give a lot of just kind of solo speeches as it is. And then I want to take questions from all of you guys, kind of hear what's happening on the ground, and how I can help you, or we can help you at Turning Point USA, because we're in the midst of an unprecedented slow motion cultural revolution right now, where if you speak out on behalf of conservative ideas or Christian ideas, if you say that America is the greatest nation ever to exist in the history of the world, in certain environments, you could lose your job, you could lose friends. There is a price to pay. And so we have to navigate that together today. And I just also want you all to know that you're not alone in that fight, and that it's worth standing for truth even when you think the cost is too great. And so I definitely want to get into that today.
Absolutely. So let's just start it off. Why are youth so important to this country, and what are your thoughts about how they can make a difference locally and throughout this state?
Well, it's our country, everybody. I mean, you know, I'm not going to totally wage intergenerational war here, but let me just say that our parents' generation, I'm 27 years old, so I'm not that much older than you, they lived in a different America, and some of them still think we live in that America. The 1980s and 1990s America is dead. I wish the America I grew up in still existed. Many of you, who's in high school right now? Anyone raise your hand? That's awesome. You will probably not live while you're a teenager in the same country I grew up in just 10 years ago. It would have been unthinkable when I was in high school for anyone to have insulted the country the way that our current leadership does and be tolerated as someone that is allowed in the mainstream of the conversation. To judge people based on skin color, we used to call those people racist, and we still should call those people racist, by the way. This idea of critical race theory, the diversity industrial complex, wokeism is another term for it. Our country has changed dramatically for the last 10 years. And you're all here today because you feel that happening in your high schools, you feel that happening with your peer groups, you see the propaganda on TikTok, on Instagram, and you are worried that you're going to live in a country where you're not even allowed to speak your mind. And so we now need to kind of invert the axis where all of a sudden we now need students to lead their parents. And I heard earlier, a speaker say, are you guys going to take it as your generation? I think that's probably a good question, but quite honestly, baby boomers and the adult generation, God bless you guys. You guys did a wonderful job building big churches and great businesses and big families, but the country's in a really bad place right now because a lot of adults did not take school board races seriously, the textbook curriculum seriously, and now we're living in an unprecedented chain of events. And so, thank you guys. Now I can see all of you guys. Thank you. And so, what does that mean for all of you students out here? It's we now have to take responsibility for the future of our country. And I'm now asking 15-year-olds to do that? Yes, that's right. And so I talk sometimes to people that are, let's say, 60 plus, and some of them get this, but more than not, they still think we're living in a 1980s America, that success is defined by a rising stock market, that success is defined by some sort of like weird platitude like diversity is our strength, which is of course total garbage. Of course it's not our strength. Are you kidding me? Unity is our strength. Since when are difference is a strength to any sort of enterprise? What brings us together is always what combines us, not our differences. Have we ever allowed that to be some sort of bumper sticker? Like, our strength is actually pointing out how different we are. Like, that's kind of weird. I mean, no, and that's an anti-Christian idea, yeah. Right? I mean, it says very clearly in the scriptures that we have unity in the body of Christ. Right. Could you imagine if, actually our strength as a church is that we have all different sort of beliefs on what the Bible says. Like, no, that's not how this works, actually. And so for students out there, it's our country now. Right. And so now you have to step up as a teenager and start to contest for this beautiful gift that we've been given, which is a constitutional republic that quite honestly is in great jeopardy. Right. It's in great jeopardy from forces both internal and international, but really the internal is where this is happening. There's a variety of different ways that you should go about that and how you can go about that, but I'll give you one right now, which is if every single person here today made a lifelong pledge to be the same person in public that you are in private, the country is saved overnight. And so let me tell you this, is that all of you are tempted to be somebody different at work, at school, with your family members. Self-censorship is the #1 form of censorship. Maybe you're less likely to want to share the gospel with your friends because you don't want to be called a Bible-thumping mystic. Maybe you're less likely to wear that red hat beautiful red hat, to your, to school because you don't want to be called all these names. And now you don't have to be callous or obnoxious about it, but never, ever in public all of a sudden cushion your beliefs with something that you would say privately. The silent majority is the problem. Why are we so silent? We're silent because we're afraid that they're going to fire us, that they're going to terminate us, that they're going to ridicule us, and that we're going to mock us. We all have the power to stop that today.
That's good. That's good. And at this conference, we've talked about how you can make a difference. You can go start organizations. You can start one of his organization's chapters. You can do a lot of different things. You can go volunteer at your church. You can go volunteer at a food bank. But a life of service to others is the most fulfilling life. When you go out and choose to make a difference, if you don't make your life about you, but you make your life about others, then you're going to be fulfilled. And I feel like Charlie's done that pretty well. I mean, he's lived a fulfilled life, and God's used him, and he's elevated him, and he's, very close with President Trump, and he's very close with a lot of the most highest leaders in our nation, and it's because God's put you in a position of authority, and he's given you a platform to be used. And I know that when you reach a certain mountaintop at such an early age, there's a lot of pressure on you. What would you tell young people about the type of faith? Just, kind of personalize this more. Talk about your faith and what it took to get you to your position, because I know there's a lot of young people they want to be like the next Charlie Kirk. They want to go out and make a difference. We have young people here that want to be influential on social media. They want to be influential in organizations. They want to be meeting, the amazing people he's given. He gave a speech at the RNC convention last year. He's rocking the world. So tell us the faith it took to get you there.
Yeah, so, first let me just kind of say that, we've been doing this for 9 years now at Turning Point USA. I never went to college. Highly recommend skipping college, by the way. Every parent immediately pulls their kid out of the Texas Youth Summit. How dare you say such a heretical thing? It's true. If you send your kid to college, you're going to play Russian roulette with their values. And, look, college can be good if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer. Largely a waste of time for most kids that go to college. And a lot of debt. You can learn to hate the country, probably question your faith, and engage in evangelistic nihilism. People say, well, how do you find a job? There's plenty of job opportunities you can get outside of getting a 4-year degree, and if you get one and you survive, more power to you. I'm not one to tell you what you should do with your life specifically. I'm just telling you, you want to know how you get a generation of Ilhan Omars and AOCs and Rashida Tlaibs? It's when you send 20 million people to college every 4 years. Okay, so for my own personal journey, it's really been a story of the Lord. And the more I've realized that God gave us his commands and the law to bless us, not to penalize us, it's been one of the greatest learning lessons of my life. So the way that we teach the Decalogue, the 10 Commandments of the Bible, is totally wrong to most young people. We say, these are rules you must follow or else God is going to punish you. That is true, but honestly, the Lord gave you these to bless you. That if you honor the Shabbos or the Shabbat, if you honor a day for God, then all of a sudden, you're going to be outside of all this ridiculous, nonsensical world, and you will be blessed by that. If you honor your mother and father, it's the only commandment that has a promise in it. It's what? You will live long in the land of which I have sent you in. Is that God did not give us these commandments because he hates us. He gave us these commands because he loves us, because he knows that our nature is to be inherently rebellious, is to try to, and the story of humanity, which was the story of the serpent, the story of Satan, is to try to stage a rebellion against God. You see, in the spiritual, the invisible domain, Lucifer staged the original rebellion against God. He took 1/3 of all the angels against him. It says this in Ezekiel. And so now his whole program with us as mere kind of physical manifestations of a spiritual war is to try to get us to embrace a full-time rebellion against God. God tries to bring us back into relationship, giving us his son, Jesus Christ, but also day to day trying to live his commands and be obedient to his teachings. It's hard in the culture that we live in. It's hard to all of a sudden reject the things of the flesh, to reject kind of wanting to be the most important person in the room. But I can tell you this, that you will not live a life of blessing instead of one of chaos and misery, the more that you try to go the ways of the world and not of the word. And so I could kind of say this, for those of you that kind of want to be, famous, it's really not that great, to be perfectly honest. You shouldn't want that. Seriously, you should want to make an impact. I could tell you it's fulfilling to know that what I say is heard by millions of people, for sure. But the true freedom comes from relationships with the Lord and with my wife and with close friends. And I also just want to be brutally honest with all of you. You're like, oh yeah, I want your life. Okay, every friend you have, you will lose. Okay? Now I want to tell you what it was for me, okay? Every high school friend except 2 I lost. Every person that used to call me a mentor has now publicly denounced me. My family is divided more than you could ever imagine externally, not my nuclear family, thankfully. right? You get reporters coming after you like you couldn't imagine, right? You get blamed for things you didn't say and you didn't do. Sounds wonderful, right? What I'm just trying to sober you that it looks all kind of fun and wonderful through the social media lens that you might view somebody. But yeah, there is a tough journey. But it's honestly the greatest blessing of my life, because I'm like, look, I'm going to say things that are true, and I really don't care what people are going to say after that. I'm not running for office. I really don't care about, I'm going to say that, for example, I say this all the time, it drives the media crazy, right? God created man, God created woman. It's that simple. This transgender nonsense has got to stop immediately, okay? It's time, just some very basic things. The Bible is the inerrant word of God. There is a God, and you are not him, and that we should worship him and obey him every single day. That we should have leaders, and we should have people in charge that put our nation first and put our citizens first. We need to have an immigration system that prioritizes American-born citizens. We need to try to have increased church attendance. We need to have larger families. We need to solve the divorce epidemic. We need to solve the epidemic of opioids and homelessness in our country. We need to stop going on these adventurous foreign wars where we do not know what success looks like, while our own citizens are carted off halfway to a land that half the people in this room might not even be able to pick out the country if it wasn't labeled, to say, what, we're fighting for freedom? Like, okay, well, how about this? How about we fight for freedom and try to stop the crimes, the plague of urban crime in our cities, or fatherlessness, or try to increase literacy, or try to increase the ability to keep people together. The point I'm getting at here is that if you believe things are true, then you should say those things. But I also want to make sure that you know it comes at a price and it comes at a cost. To say these things that I just said, that kind of little 90-second thing, you are then challenging the incumbent orthodoxy. And so, yeah, I could give a lot of different pieces of advice, but trust the Lord, read the Bible every single day, do not engage in the flesh. If your friends gossip all the time and spend a lot of time in social media, get off that. Seriously, I could give a whole speech on that. I think social media is destroying our generation, by the way. And if I could just expound on that, you are a mixture of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Choose wisely. Choose people that don't gossip. Choose people that don't cuss. Choose people that obey and honor the Lord. Choose people that want to go find a singular person to marry and be with that person. This is considered to be like, how dare you say these sorts of things? Pleasure is everything. Like, actually, no, it isn't. You will live a life of misery if that's the case. And when parents send their kids to college, that is the ultimate value, right? That is what college is designed around, which is instant gratification. But I could tell you this, guys, here's the awesome news, is that you can all be leaders in this very dark time. That you can lead people to the Lord, you can lead people to follow the country, you can lead people to love their nation, you can lead people to pursue righteousness. This country is in such turmoil right now that young people that are doing the right thing, you will set the world on fire and you will be blessed beyond your wildest imaginations.
Awesome. I've heard it said, the bigger the blessing, the bigger the burden. So like, if you're going to have a blessing and God's going to bless you to do something, if he's going to give you a platform, there's a weight that comes with that. You're going to get more criticism. I heard Charlie doesn't even look at his Twitter because it'd be a very nasty experience for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like I deleted all my social media. I highly recommend it for all of you. Total waste of time. It makes you a worse person. It makes you hate other people, and then you're basically just a widget in the social media empire. Everyone should delete every single social media app. You're like, how do I talk to my friends? You know, I grew up in America when you used to call people. I know it's kind of crazy. People don't do that anymore. But no, seriously, and for me personally, you know, we still post on social media. Our team does it. I look at it like maybe once a week. My life has been so blessed as soon as I stopped caring. Like, Charlie, you're trending on Twitter. I'm like, feels the same as if I wasn't trending on Twitter. You know what I realized? That all of us are being manipulated through a screen and through code that is not your own. It was so powerful. They're like, Charlie, you're trending. I said, if you wouldn't have told me, then I wouldn't have known, and then my day would have been non-impacted by something that is not real. Right. For all of you that are on TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, you have just given your life to social media masters that hate you. Right. And for parents, no kid should get a smartphone before they're 18. Right. Seriously. And kids start like shaking when they hear this, right? And trust me, I grew up in America 10 years ago.
But you can use social media to your good, because we do have some influencers that represent Turning Point USA here.
Don't try to be an I have a whole thing on this. Like, why be in it? Like, do it. Try to pursue righteousness. Don't try to be popular.
Yeah.
I take it from somebody who like took the following thing really seriously for a couple years. It's a very empty life.
Yeah.
Okay, trust me. And yes, you could do it for good. Try not to, try to manage it. Obviously, try to find a balance. And by the way, I'm saying these things to try to get your attention intentionally, because I was like, reduce your time on social media. You guys would roll your eyes. No, you have to get rid of it. And all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what is it? Like, got your attention, didn't I? But it's true. Get rid of it.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, look, I am of a sort of radical opinion that we are being microengineered by people that hate you and hate us and want a very specific type of country that we do not share. And so don't give up your valuable time, your soul, your spirit, your emotions to some algorithm that is like, now you have to get mad about this. Now you have to get jealous that this person's having a lot of fun at the boat on a lake, when in reality they're miserable and you're miserable because you think they're happy, right? In reality, just like turn off the phone and go have real human relationships and look at people in the eye and start to live your life again.
Right. I think that's a good way to say it. Yeah. So like, he's very influential on social media. He has a great team that helps him. Also, he has a lot of influencers working with Turning Point that promote Turning Point. And so there's a lot of people that are using social media for good, but it's a way to get a message out. It's a way to communicate. But your 5,000 friends on Facebook aren't your true friends. Like your inner circle of friends are your friends. So reduce your time on social media is the way I'll put it. And
delete all the apps.
Okay. Well, somewhere in between what we're saying is the right way. So.
Yeah, as Aristotle said, moderation is the way to live life. So you got to moderate between Christian and me. So figure it out.
Okay.
Use prudence, everybody. We can talk about that word if you want.
Just don't spend 8 hours a day on Facebook looking at what everybody else is doing.
I don't think this audience uses Facebook very much.
Instagram or TikTok.
TikTok.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a good transition. I want to know what books you read. Give us your top 5 books next to the Bible that they can read and grow and learn. I'm sure you spend a lot of time studying to be able to give the speeches you give, so share.
Yeah, I spend 2 hours a day where I turn off my phone and I either go through Hillsdale online course, which I'll tell you guys about a partnership we've announced with them. Hillsdale's phenomenal. Where I read great books or explore big ideas. I encourage all of you to do this. It's so great. You actually feel as if you're living in a life before all of kind of this nonsense and this distraction. We have a lot of Christians here, right? So let me give you kind of a sales pitch of something that I think that Christians have really got wrong, and some churches do this right, and I think this is one church that does, is you guys really need to honor the Sabbath. It's one of the things that we don't talk about enough in Christian culture, and it's so important, is that it is the Lord's day. And I'm the worst at this, and I've become better thanks to my wife over the last month, where I will turn my phone off for a full 24 hours. A full, like, legit Jewish Sabbath, and here's why, is the Lord wants you to take a day to honor Him and be out of the world. You have 6 days to go crazy, and here's what you'll find. Number 1, you'll see things more clearly. Number 2, your other 6 days, you won't be as fatigued. All of a sudden, those other 6 days will like always kind of be centered around God's day. You'll be looking at it, you'll be looking forward to it, and it becomes kind of the high point of your entire week, right? And so I could go on why I think Christians need to take the Sabbath really seriously, but there's mixed opinions on that, but that's obviously where I land. So what books? Yeah, I mean, first of all, please go read books. I just need to make kind of the sales pitch for books. I never thought I'd have to do that, but we don't really have a book reader. And here, let me just have a conversation with you guys about this. It's not Audible, not any of these audio books. Go buy a physical book that you can touch, okay? Very important, okay? This Audible nonsense, like, oh yeah, I'm reading a book. You're listening to a book, okay? By the way, let me be very clear. I listen to books too, but I don't count that as my reading time, okay? That's very passive. But there's something that happens when you're reading the Word, including the Bible. That's why you got to get rid of the Bible app. Okay, seriously. Go get a real Bible. I have a whole speech on this too, by the way, which is that the Bible app, I think, has been one of the worst things that has ever happened. It's created distracting Bible reading, you can get interrupted. And for me, I know that when I pick up my Bible, it has a certain weight and a feel and a texture that is so unique. Why would I want to share that with some sort of weird iPhone that I'm also doing text messages and emails on? No, I want the Bible to be solely dedicated to the Lord, and I want to know that when I sit in my chair and I read the Bible, that no one can bother me, that Satan cannot have some sort of emergency phone call come in and not some sort of email. Okay, so books. Yeah, look, I'll give you a couple that are really good. Everyone should go read Age of Entitlement by Christopher Caldwell, America Since the 1960s. It's a phenomenal book, very provocative. It's terrific. I encourage every young person to get into kind of the 1940s, 1950s dystopian literature, like 1984, Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, Darkness at Noon by Arthur Koestler, Abolition of Man by C.S. Lewis, and then anything that Winston Churchill wrote, who was the greatest man to live in the 20th century. Let me say it again. Winston Churchill was the greatest man to live in the 20th century and gets almost no credit for that. Anything about Abraham Lincoln, Crisis of a House Divided is really good. And then everyone should read Aristotle's Ethics and Politics and Metaphysics.
So I'm going to disagree with you on one thing. Okay. I actually listened to the MAGA doctrine on Audible.
Oh, well, thank you for doing that, Christian. Well, look, I say these things. You guys, people sometimes think, I'm so offended that you insulted listening. I'm like, stop taking yourself so seriously, okay? I'm telling you, as from my own personal perspective, it's like, so yeah, Christian, I'm not offended that you listen to an audiobook, okay? I would wish you would get right by the real thing, but that's a different thing. So,
well, you know, sometimes if you're multitasking, like I like to work out and listen to books, so you can turn your car into a university and you can use Audible.
That is true. I will agree with that.
So if you're taking a long trip, you can listen to books and you're driving 3 hours. I mean, use that time and turn it into a university. And I actually listened to his book that way. So So I think that's a good book, The MAGA Doctrine. And here's the thing about books. There's another book that I really like, Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's one of my favorite books of all time. It'll show you how to treat people. And you don't treat people to get stuff out of them. You treat people so that you can be a blessing to them and they can be a blessing to you. If you help enough people get what they want, they'll help you get what you want. That's a great quote to live by Zig Ziglar. Also, Meg J, Why Your 20s Matter and How to Make the Most of Them Now. It's a really good book. There's more that I could name, but since we brought up the MAGA doctrine, let me just tell you that one thing I really appreciate about you, Charlie, is your bold stance and your flavor and your brand of conservatism, because everybody calls themselves a conservative, but sometimes they don't really have the right conservative values. They paint in pale pastels, but not in bold colors, as Reagan talked about. And the people that Charlie has at his conferences, I can tell this man has the right brand of conservatism. The things that he says, the people that he hangs around with, I approve of who he spends his time with. I like what he's doing. And just talk about your conservative views.
Yeah, let's talk about where the conservative movement is and where we need to lead it, and what we're trying to do at the Charlie Kirk Show, on our radio show, and our podcast, and at Turning Point USA, which is, look, conservatives have been winning elections for the last 30 years, and we've been losing the country. And let me preface this by saying I have a soft spot for a lot of libertarian beliefs and libertarian approaches on guns. I think we need to make gun laws looser and less stringent. For example, on lockdowns, we never should have locked down the country at all. It was one of the worst mistakes ever. But there is this kind of conservatism that I find to be repulsive, which is corporate conservatism, which is kind of like we're going to give an excuse not to do what's right by our voters. I'll give an example close to here, which is the governor of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson, who's one of the worst governors in the country, and he just wants to go serve on a board of Walmart when he's done, right? And so Governor Hutchinson came out and he said that I'm not going to sign a bill that forbids teenagers from chemically castrating themselves, because he says that, well, we need to have the freedom to be able to choose. And so that right there highlights what's so wrong with parts of the conservative movement. Freedom is not being able to do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it. That's some sort of weird secular hedonism. Liberty is the pursuit of virtue. Liberty is doing what you ought to do. So then people say, well, Charlie, who are you to say what one ought to do? Glad we can have that conversation now. There are some things that are objectively good. Telling the truth is objectively good. Protecting children is objectively good. Having children is objectively good. Increasing church attendance is objectively good. Putting your nation first is objectively good. Making sure politicians aren't self-dealing is objectively good. To all of a sudden be like indifferent, like, well, who's to say that a 13-year-old shouldn't be able to go through chemical castration surgery? No, society should say that. It's evil. It's wrong. Children should not have the ability to do that. And so that's where the role of government, we should be unafraid as conservatives to all of a sudden say, you know what, we are going to call balls and strikes when it comes to castrating children. I'll give you another example where people say like, well, private businesses have a right to mandate an experimental vaccine on children. And let me just say, if you got the vaccine, I hope it works out for you. I decided not to get the vaccine.
I didn't either.
And I'm not going to criticize you. I'm not going to, I don't do that. I don't make a habit of going around and asking people their personal medical decisions and then all of a sudden being like, you're an idiot. You're not, that's really dumb, okay? So whatever decision you made, I'm sure it's full of wisdom with a doctor and you made the right decision. That's a nuance, that's a very moderate position. But conservatives have all of a sudden become like these weird drug peddlers telling us all to get vaccinated. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, no, it's okay that your private place of business can mandate the vaccine, even though you've been working there for 30 years. And like, okay, here's another great example. That's corporate conservatism, right? Legit, like America first conservatism is no. Our voters and our constituents deserve protection against some weird, creepy tech company that is like, no, you must go take the AstraZeneca vaccine or else you're going to get fired. That should be a protected class. And the conservative movement needs to stand up for their constituents that are all of a sudden being forced to get a vaccine against their will. And yet most of the conservative movement's like, oh, no, it's their right. No, it's not. That's a protected class. You can't all of a sudden mandate that. Could you imagine if how the country would be in like a total upheaval if all of a sudden a employer was like, you must take birth control to work at my people would be like losing their mind, right? No, that's my body, my choice. How that's not the case for the vaccine. And so there's this new type of conservatism best articulated by people like Tucker Carlson and by Josh Hawley. Ted Cruz does a great job, which is we are now willing to challenge overreaching government interests and overreaching corporate interests that decide to wage war on the American way of life. That means that we're going to stand against mass immigration. We're going to stand against misadventurous foreign wars. We're going to put American workers first. And our people say, Charlie, what does success look like? Success looks like getting the birth rate to go up, crime to go down, and American social trust in their country to expand dramatically, where all of a sudden people are proud to be American again. That this is not that hard, and yet I'll be very honest with you. There are many Republicans that we send to Congress and many Republicans that served in elected office that don't believe what I just said. No. They believe that their vision is to let companies do whatever they want to do to you. If they want to spy on you, fine. If they want to all of a sudden destroy your small businesses, fine. I don't think it's a good thing that Amazon has destroyed 40% of small businesses. That's not a conservative value, that's a corporate value. I believe that small businesses are a bedrock of the American experience. And all of a sudden get, you could get all these wonderful packages delivered by Jeff Bezos. I don't want that. I would rather go drive 6 minutes down the street to the local cobbler or to the local carpenter and look face to face a guy who has to support 3 people in his family and pay like 20% more than all of a sudden giving Jeff Bezos another 160 billion on top of his 160 billion. So what we're getting at here is a conservative movement that prioritizes things that are beautiful and good. And what are those things? Families, children, church, and the nation. And if any sort of organization gets in the way of those things, then they're going to have to get through us.
We're going to have a young patriot here later today, Madison Cawthorn. Who gets it? And let me tell you that when these types of leaders stand up for the people, they have all of these small dollar contributions rush in. He has donors all over the country. But it's the other politicians sometimes that are getting their corporate handouts from Halliburton that are wanting to send all of our troops off to war. And that's a real problem, because the defense contracting, that they're doing is paying their finances. So,
and let me be very clear. You know, my position on trying to de-emphasize nation building, which was a total disaster, is also a nuanced view of what Biden and the regime just did in Kabul is treason to our country, to not allow our own military to defend themselves and to have one of the reckless, most incompetent withdrawals in the history of the planet. So I just want to make sure my position is very clear that while I believe nation building is a failed project and all of a sudden implementing trillions of dollars to try to make 6th century goat herding perverts like embrace Thomas Jefferson, which was a total waste of time from the beginning. It's like, oh yeah, let's go spend $1 trillion, meanwhile our citizens are suffering. But let me be very clear, the way that this withdrawal was handled was, I believe, treasonous to our country.
And impeachable.
And impeachable.
Impeachable.
Giving weapons to the enemy, turning our back on our allies. So I just want to make sure that's very clear and that's not lost in some of the current news cycle.
Right. And Biden is conflating the withdrawal with how we withdrew. We should not have withdrawn the way we withdrew. So he's making it about, well, we had to withdraw. Well, I mean, that's not what it's about.
Here's the example. It's like, okay, you have a failing heart and you have to get surgery. You're like, okay, I'm going to take a pocket knife and just take my heart out. Like, no, that's a really bad idea, okay? You need to consult like people who know what they're doing. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to like cut my heart out. Like, okay, we know that you have to have heart surgery, okay? We know that needs to get done. His excuse is like, well, it had to be done. Like, again, it's like if you have to get your appendix removed, you don't be like go to a homeless guy on the side of the street and be like, can you get rid of this thing? Like, that's basically what we did, right? It's like, oh yeah, we got to get out of the country. Let's go find some guy who's screaming to the sky to like execute our withdrawal. It was the dumbest foreign policy decisions ever made. It's like, you know what we need? We need to go give to the Taliban our helicopters and our weapons. Like, that's
your tax dollars.
Right. And so anyway, I'm happy to explore that further.
The word nation building, I think Charlie's, what he's saying is we shouldn't be trying to build democracies all over the Middle East. That doesn't work. So that's this point.
And it doesn't work for a reason. It doesn't work because the intelligentsia, they don't understand our own history, which our own history was 600 years of intellectual exploration and writing and Christians building a philosophical formation that then all of a sudden self-government could be tolerated. So our own leaders don't even know our own history. So they're like, oh yeah, you know, the Taliban will all of a sudden embrace liberty. Like, no, they haven't done any of the hard legwork. They're 500 years out. They have a lot of debates to still happen internally, dialogue, reformations. They didn't go through the Magna Carta. They didn't go through the Mayflower Compact. They didn't go through the Virginia Declaration of Rights. They didn't go through the Great Awakening. They didn't go through Jonathan Edwards, George Whitefield, Jonathan Mayhew. They didn't go through Thomas Paine's Common Sense. There was a lead up that organically allowed us to embrace natural rights as a way to govern ourselves. We're like, oh yeah, we can go into the Kandahar Valley and all of a sudden tell them, like, you know what, here's this idea of liberty. They're like, we're living in the 700s. What are you talking about? Right? And so that kind of hubris is best embraced by people that quite honestly don't understand our own history.
Right. Well, I think one thing that would be really interesting to talk about, we have just a couple of more minutes. Yeah, we're running out of time, but we have a couple of more minutes for questions. So let's take a couple of questions from the audience. And so, okay, so we have Nick who's going to help, and maybe Brandon or Nick can help and ask and bring some questions.
In the meantime, guys, I'll give you a super shameless plug. 2 things: get involved with Turning Point USA. Everyone needs to go sign up and start a high school or college chapter. And then we do 2 podcasts a day on the Charlie Kirk Show. And if you guys would consider subscribing to the Charlie Kirk Show by taking out your smartphone, every single phone has a podcast app. It really blesses us. We travel the country. It keeps us immune from big tech censorship. You take out your smartphone, type in Charlie Kirk Show, and hit that beautiful subscribe button. It really, really helps us out. Thank you for doing that.
So we're gonna,
and if every person in this room did that, we would beat Rachel Maddow on the podcast chart. So let's all do that and beat her together.
So we're going to take about 3 or 4 questions, and so I'll let Katerina, let me pick them, and actually let's let Charlie pick them. Okay. We'll pick 3 or 4 people, and then you'll get to ask a question. So Katerina, can you take that?
She's very eager. That could be very good or bad. I've heard worse. Trust me. Let's try to take one up in this area too. Yeah.
All right, so first of all, thank you for what you do and for Turning Point. My question's actually on the Afghanistan thing. Yeah. I just am reading MAGA Doctrine right now. I read your chapter just the other day on No Endless Wars. And I agree with what you're saying about nation building, and I personally think maybe we shouldn't have even gone there in the first place to Afghanistan. But now that we're there, there's a complicated issue. And so I guess what my question is, were we actually really fighting a war, or was it more of a peacekeeping presence? And I can kind of see how a peacekeeping presence is necessary, because if you create a vacuum in the Middle East, someone's going to fill it, and chances are it will be China or Russia, and we're seeing it's the Taliban, but China's benefiting. So I guess I'd like you to explain that a little bit, and after World War II, like, we stayed in Germany, we're still there. So I'd just like you to delve into that a little more.
That's a really good question. So thank you for reading the book, by the way. So yeah, you have to have prudence, which comes from a Greek word prudentia, which means practical knowledge or common sense. So you have to have non-ideological approaches to foreign policy, which means you come in and see how things are, not how you wish them to be, and then you make appropriate decisions. Yeah, looking back, it probably would have been a better decision to have special operations to operate throughout Afghanistan and hunt terrorist by terrorist than thinking we're going to spend $200 billion to go prop up an Afghan military that doesn't even fire a shot but when the Taliban comes after them, right? That was not just a waste of time, it was a waste of lives, a waste of money, so on and so forth. So the situation is currently a total disaster. The way we withdrew, again, was one of the dumbest things we've ever done because we've decided to elevate diversity over competency, right? Lloyd Austin and Mark Milley have no business at all running the Department of Defense, and they're there largely because of a emphasis on diversity. So I'm going to keep this short. What the solution is right now, quite honestly, neither of us could tell you because we don't even know all the classified information that's around it. But at the current moment, there's only one thing that matters, which is we probably now have to send our armed forces back into Kabul to get every single American out of Kabul because of the recklessness that was now. So now all of a sudden we have to fulfill, our leaders now have to think non-ideologically, right? Where it sounds nice to end the endless wars, which of course I believe, but now we have our own countrymen stranded in Kabul. So now all of a sudden the decision-making matrix using prudence changes, right? You're like, okay, if your own Americans are stranded, you got to go get them. And so the problem, now that 13 Marines were killed, is that we turned our wonderful, amazing Marines, and God bless them for their service, into like traffic cops and paper processors at the gate, when we should have been doing NEOs, which is a non-combatant evacuation operation, and sending our Marines to go get Americans out of the city back into the airport. Not to mention, we never should have given up Bagram as quickly as we did. We would have been able to do this evacuation a lot quicker. And so, again, I will say this, that kind of occupying foreign territory, especially in the Middle East, has tended not to actually result in the Middle East being a better, more hospitable place for liberty or freedom. That you could use Iraq, you could use Syria, you could use Libya. The general rule in the Middle East, with some exceptions, is when we get involved, whatever comes after is actually worse. You get rid of Saddam Hussein, well then you get ISIS. You get rid of Muammar Gaddafi, well then you get some super extremist Islamic terror groups. You allow, I mean, Egypt was a little bit more organic, but then the Brotherhood takes over. And so here's the position that I think that President Trump articulated the best, which is strength through deterrence, but we are not there to all of a sudden get involved in the government business of a foreign nation. That is where I think President Trump was so prudent, and he articulated this foreign policy belief so incredibly well.
And we've got to remember to keep the families of those lives lost in our prayers. We are at a church, so we prayed yesterday, and we'll probably pray again today, and pray for everyone in Afghanistan and all of our military serving there. They're wonderful, wonderful men and women. Okay, let's get to the next question.
Hi, my name is Catherine Grimm, and I am 18 years old, and I just graduated high school.
Awesome.
I did 4 years in ROTC at my school to enlist in the Navy. And right now I'm trying to test in, and they will not let me in unless I get the vaccine. And I was curious on whether, like, if I enlisted before, it was mandatory to get it, and they told me that if I was already enlisted and I didn't already have it, that they would kick me out and I would get a dishonorable discharge. And so my question is, I do not know what to do. Like, that is the one thing that I am very passionate about, and I will not, I'm not gonna not go without fighting, so I need your help on what to...
Yeah, so this is a great question. So I get these questions a lot. Let me be very clear, though, is that Senator Ted Cruz is doing a phenomenal job, and I want to make sure I exempt him from this criticism. But your Republican leaders in the Senate could end this tomorrow, and they're choosing not to. They could, and you say, how is that possible? They sit on the Armed Services Committee. They know every person in the Pentagon. They could combine their political power and call the Pentagon and say, you got to get exemptions. Now, I've talked to Senator Blackburn. She says she's working on it. I've been talking to Senator Cotton. I share your passion with this issue. And quite honestly, any Republican person who is doing mass media that is peddling the vaccine, I'm telling you, they are doing massive disservice to you right now. And it's really shown a lot of people's colors. And then it's really amazing to see how quiet they've been on young people being targeted for mandatory vaccinations, their whole life being destroyed, and our Republican leaders sit idly by and do absolutely nothing. I'm going to give you some advice in just a second, so let me just kind of help you navigate this first. So basically, 60 million Americans do not have representation from the opposition party. I'm not getting vaccinated at gunpoint. I can't go to restaurants in LA, New York City, and I'm not even allowed in certain places in certain states, even though the vaccine has 12,000 plus adverse event related deaths. How many people here, raise your hand if you know anyone that had a very, let's say, difficult reaction to the vaccine. Raise your hand. Look around. So I want you to get a picture of this. This is, according to the media, they say there's no reaction, it's 1 in a million. We just proved those odds to be wrong. I know we have 6,000 emails and comments on our own show of people that lost their fathers, that dropped dead right after the vaccine, paralyzed from the waist down. Again, if you get the vaccine, you think it's the right decision for you, terrific. That's your own medical decision to take something that you think is going to work. But we know the vaccine in Israel has an 18% efficacy. So why are all of a sudden we taking our most prized possession, our young people, wanting to vaccinate them? This is about social control. And this is about them proving how powerful they are. And quite honestly, I'm disgusted by Republican leaders that are allowing this to happen. And so, what can you do? I want to help you. I know the best attorneys and pastors that can work on you for a religious exemption, okay? And they are starting to get some traction in the military, so don't give up. And maybe you might have to wait it out. You might have to wait 6 months or 12 months because maybe once Republicans get back a chamber of power, this can start to change. I know we're running low on time. Masks of kids, forcibly masking children is child abuse, and we need to say that out loud. And so, There is zero epidemiological evidence to show that children wearing masks does anything. Out of a study of 84,000 children with the Chinese coronavirus, 0 died that did not have leukemia or underlying health issues. Again, this is about them going after your children in some sort of creepy, weird, insidious way and trying to control you. Okay, yes, your question super quick.
What is your advice to young conservatives who are outspoken, but they're always hounded down by their beliefs? Almost every day at my school, I like to share my beliefs with people, and they just hound me down and say that I'm wrong, I'm a racist, sexist, transphobic, homophobic, bigot, and I want to know your advice on what to do. Because I feel like giving up, but I don't want to.
You shouldn't give up. So, so, look, and I just want to tell all of you guys, as soon as you sign up for this fight, you will lose friends, you will be mocked, you will be ridiculed, you will be bullied. But if you look at this from the Christian lens, that's the promise. We're guaranteed persecution. We are guaranteed backlash for this. Now look, if you say something that's insensitive, then whatever, but you don't strike me, like, the point is that they use these accusations as a form, again, of social control. So every single person out there, just know, you're gonna be called the worst names in the book. Get in line. None of it means anything, okay? Keep on expressing your beliefs and saying what you believe, and then you'll be truly free. Okay, last question. Do we have one more? I don't know if we do. I guess not.
We're done.
We're
done.
Yeah.
You got to catch a
I'm
flight
sorry.
anyway.
Yeah. I have a tendency to go overtime. Can I just say one last thing?
Absolutely.
If you guys would subscribe, we would deeply appreciate it. I know some of these things, you're like, wow, Charlie told people college is awful and like all these things. Look, I want you to think deeply about some of the things I said, and I say them for a reason, to try to have you live a blessed life and help save this nation. This is our country, everybody, okay? This is our home. We are not going to go move to Singapore or Hong Kong. Our current ruling class does not have any sort of attachment to this nation. We need to spread the gospel, pursue righteousness, and defend the homeland. And I'm telling you that when we do that, our generation standing up and expressing our beliefs, we are going to win in great numbers. I really believe that.
Parting word, and I love when he talks about this. Parting word, I teach at a college, so I think and he has chapters at different colleges, and so I think college can be good, but you need to know why you're going and know why you're going. And Charlie, he has a great reason for that, and I'm sure he can.
Yeah, be able to answer the question of why you're going to college, not where you're going to college. If you decide not to go to college, God bless you. And we need more plumbers, electricians, carpenters, people that go to the military, entrepreneurs. I'll say this super close in closing. If you're a parent, stop putting pressure on your kid to go to college. It's wrong, and it's not right. There's no data to support it. They don't need to go to college to succeed. And large in part, I'm going to say something provocative on the way out, a lot of times it's more about parents' ego than the child's future. Many parents are afraid to turn to their neighbors and their family members and say, Johnny's a plumber, or Johnny's working construction. They have fear about that because they equate not going to college with failure. That is not true. Instead, a parent should want one thing. You should want your child to know the Lord, have courage, and be able to have good character. Who cares if they go to college? God bless you guys. Thanks so much.
That was good. That was really good. I really enjoyed that. He always has so much good to say. Are you having a good time? Alrighty. Well, next up, we're going to be having a women's panel. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about women involved in politics. So we have a little video introduction to introduce them, and then they'll be right up. Cheers are a little weird. I'm going to fix them. Hi, you guys. How are y'all feeling this morning?
Very
so
good.
excited. I know. I am too. I'm very excited. Do y'all want to introduce yourselves and tell a little bit about yourselves and y'all's involvement in politics?
Sure. So, can you guys hear me? My name is Layla Perney. I own a public relations agency. So, do you guys ever see those people that have featured on Fox News or featured in Forbes on their profiles? I basically help people get that because if somebody has a compelling story about their brand, their mission, something that's happened politically, or even just for small businesses, we just help people get that story out. But originally, I was in finance, and then I transitioned into the political world because I had a story go viral, which you guys can Google, but basically was at Harvard and had roommates that searched my bedroom on the premise that I might be a Republican, and it almost cost me getting evicted. So feel free to Google it. It's a doozy.
Hey everyone, I'm Tennille Whaley. How are you today? Are you awake and invigorated? So I am a Southern conservative pastor's wife. Yeah. And I work in big tech. Yeah, there's like, Okay, so I am the Chief Technology Officer for IBM's Federal and Department of Defense space. And I help the government agencies establish artificial intelligence inside their agencies. because I believe there's a scripture that says we are to be in the world but not of it, right? Is that in your Bible? And so what my premise is and why I do what I do is because God opened the doors, and science and technology are not ethical because they can't be. And so what it takes for science and technology to be ethical is ethical people to get involved. And so here we are in this space, and how many of you are in the STEM world, the science, technology, engineering, mathematics? Where are you at?
I see some.
Yep. Cheer if you are. Let me do it that way. All right. That's the problem. If you want to affect change in the world of technology, and if you're tired of being censored, and if you're tired of the way things are going, you have to get involved in it. And so that is my approach. I am as conservative as you can be, and yet I went to a public high school in Pearland. I went to University of Houston, and now I work for IBM, a big tech company. And the reason I do what I do is because I have chosen to shape the world around me and not let it shape me. And so I would love to talk to each one of you, anybody that's interested in this world, this crazy world of technology, that it's really easy to talk about and gripe about, but if we're not involved in it as Christians, why didn't a Christian invent Facebook? Why isn't there a Christian behind Twitter? And so if you are interested in that and you want to talk about that, please come find me. I would love to talk to you about it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mayra Flores, and I am running for Congress in South Texas. I stand for God, family, and country. This country is worth fighting for. This country is worth you fighting for. It means everything for me. This amazing country opened the doors for me when I was 7 years old. I was born in Tamaulipas, Mexico. I was blessed to come to the United States legally, thanks to my father. He became an American citizen, filed for his family to do it the right way. And I want every child coming to the United States to do it that way and have that amazing experience that I had. I'm a proud Border Patrol wife. Thank you. I'm a proud respiratory care practitioner, fighting for the future of my children, fighting for the future of your children. So I encourage you to get involved. Again, my name is Mayra Flores, and behind my name is your future as well. Thank you.
Wow. I think this is kind of how we talked about earlier with the young people involved in politics. It's also with women, is that you can be involved in so many different ways. You can have so many different backgrounds. I know each of us may have been raised a certain way or come from a different level of wealth or have different experiences, but you are not disqualified to be involved in politics if that is something you feel called to do, and God can use you in many different aspects to do that. So I wanted to ask you, Layla, so you told us a little bit, so she went to Harvard University, very impressive. I was like, she's the better Legally Blonde. But I wanted to ask you, so you said that your apartment was searched. So what was that experience like for you, and what is your takeaway from going through such a crazy experience like that?
Oh my goodness. My takeaway is that Republicans are so used to being classy and quiet and reserved. And when all of this happened and when it started to pick up in the media, I just had this gut instinct to keep speaking up. I had so many friends. I actually had a boyfriend at the time who said, do not go on Fox News and talk about this. It will be so embarrassing, and people will take the video from Fox News and put it in group chats, and you'll get embarrassed. And I had friends that said the same thing. But I had it in my gut, no, I've got to speak out when I see something wrong. And it was really scary there for a second. I remember just being in my apartment alone, just sitting in my room, and I saw my name trending on Twitter, and then it was trending on Google News. And I was like, oh my Lord, what have I gotten myself into? But it's the greatest thing I ever did, because frankly, it's the reason I get to be up here with these incredible women. And it brought me to Texas, the greatest state ever. And I was going to go toward the path of finance, which nothing wrong with the finance field, but when I started getting immersed in politics and started writing opinion editorials, I decided my heart was in a different place. And still, I mean, I got to run a political campaign, but after that experience, still, I'm not necessarily in politics. I'm not in the political sector, but I get to work with political clients that are telling their stories. So it doesn't matter what field you go into necessarily, but you can always use your position and your influence to effectuate change.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is so good. So good. Wow. And I think that's even a reminder to us that sometimes the difficult things that we go through, that's not easy to, be blasted all over social media. And there's going to be people that support you, but there's going to be people that don't. But sometimes that puts you in the greatest positions in life. And I think often, I've heard this said before, is our pain can turn into a purpose. I also wanted to ask you, Miss Myra, so you are running for Congress, and that is a huge honor, and that is just absolutely wonderful. I know you'll do an amazing job. I wanted to ask you, so what led you to feel called to do that, and what gave you the courage to do that, and how has that process been for you?
Well, in let's just say 2008, when Barack Obama was running for office, I remember telling my father, who should I vote for? And in the Hispanic community, the majority are Democrat. And I remember him telling me, of course, Barack Obama. And I did that. And in 2010, I walked away from the party because I realized that the Democrat Party did not stand for my values. You know, we stand for God and family. They stand against everything we stand for. And I was mentioning to you earlier, I wrote an article in college about why I was a Democrat. And I still remember that day because my Democrat instructor said, you know, I love your article, but I hate to tell you, but you're a Republican. And that was the second time I was told that, because also a family member told me as well, you're a Republican. Everything you say and everything you stand for is Republican. So I decided to walk away and educate my family. So I started telling my family what the Republican Party stood for and the Democrat, and helping my family also walk away from the Democrat Party. Thank you. In 2016, it all changed. President Trump inspired me to get involved at the local level. I wanted to do more than just, helping my family walk away from the Democrat Party. I also wanted to help my community. So I got involved in 2016. He inspired me to do so and became a precinct chair. Started a chapter called the Hispanic Outreach Chair, educating the community what we stand for. And in 2020, we had an 83% increase in support for President Trump in South Texas. We went from full-blown Democrat to almost turning South Texas red, and we're gonna flip South Texas red in 22 and send a strong message to the Democrat Party that we don't have to be Democrat. Get involved, start at the local level, and you one day can also run for office. Do not allow anyone to tell you what you can or cannot do because of where you're from, because of the color of your skin. No, it's all in here. We are more than that. It's all in here. Always put God and family first, and trust me, you'll be successful if you follow that. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. I'm learning so much, and it's making me personally just want to take steps to always be more involved and to always believe that you can make a difference. Something that I've seen as a common thing talked about today is that we can't avoid the world, that we should face it, and that we should stand for what we believe in. And I wanted to ask you, Tennille. So, Tennille, all these, they're all just amazing, beautiful inside and out. And you talked a little bit about how there is a lot of censorship in big tech. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and how to become involved and be a Christian and a conservative in that world and make a difference.
All right, are y'all ready for a little bit of nerd stuff behind your cell phones? All right, thank you. So your cell phones and social media technology and all technology runs on algorithms. And algorithms are things that are trained to look for certain things. And so if you've ever had one of your posts censored, one of your pastor's sermons censored, something that you felt very strongly about censored, or a tag put on it, it is because of an algorithm. And people train those algorithms, okay? So it's not just out there operating by itself. People are telling it what is right and wrong. And those people are not conservative people. And so it's a political correctness, but it's not really political correctness. It is going against conservative views. You are the only ones that are being censored, okay? Like, the right is the crazier the view, the better, the more successful it is on social media. The more conservative you post, or if you post speaking out against something, you will be censored. And it's not because there is a person back there just saying, oh, delete this post, delete this post. No, it is all done by artificial intelligence. And somebody is training that artificial intelligence what is right and it is wrong. And so if we are not involved in the training of artificial intelligence, if we are not involved in the training and the scaling of these models, then you can't gripe and you can't complain when they censor you, because they don't agree with you. And if there are none of us involved in this space, then it keeps going without us. And as Lily Kate said, we can't reinvent the internet. And I appreciate the platforms that are trying. They're trying to find a Christian way to do this. We don't have the funding right now to recreate the internet. And so what we have to do is, I want to encourage you, you are at this time in your life where you get to choose what you want to be right now. You get to choose the career path that you go into. And so I want to encourage you to go into the technology space and make a difference. Go into the cybersecurity world and make a difference, because if we are not there, it is a ship being led by people that don't believe what you do. It's not about censoring everything. It's about censoring you. You are the only ones being censored. You can say the craziest viewpoints ever on social media and it won't be censored. You can talk about aborting babies on Instagram and it's not censored. You stand up against that stuff and you're censored, because the people that are behind the scenes don't believe the way you do. And as Christians, I feel like we step away from science because there's an inherent fear of, what if I discover something in science that will disprove my faith? Your God is too small. There is nothing in this world that can be proven that my God didn't already plan the solution for. And if you have a problem and if you're scared of what science will discover, then maybe you don't know the God I serve, because the God I serve is the God of it all. And anything that science proves, it's just proving how great He is. It is just proving how magnetic and how amazing our God is. Don't be scared of the world. They're not going to disprove anything that you believe, because you serve the one true God who created it all, okay? So walk boldly into the science labs, walk boldly into the technology space and say, there is nothing you can do that can deter me from the greatness of my God.
Wow, you guys, I just learned so much today, and I think that is such an inspiration to all of us that You can be involved in technology, you can run for an office, you can do so many different things and still be used to accomplish something that God would want you to and do something for your values. So our time is actually up. I wish we could go all day, but thank you so much, you guys. I enjoyed so much, and I know everyone else did.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you all.
Alrighty, guys. Can we give them another round of applause? They were wonderful. Well, next up, we're having Don Huffines. I believe I'm saying that right. He is a conservative businessman, and he is going to be coming up.
Hello, hello, Patriots. Hello, Patriots. Are we having some fun today? Woo! What a great day. What a great day. Well, I can tell you a little bit of something about, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, then I'm going to ask you a few rhetorical questions, and then we're going to have some fun. All right, well, first, I'm going to tell you that I'm a fifth-generation Texan. Thank you. I'm a God-fearing Texas patriot, and I'm pro-life from conception to natural death. Thank you. And I'm planning on being your next governor of Texas. Yeah, well, let me just tell you, there's something about my journey through politics and life, and it's because I think you're going to find it interesting, of course. When I was about your age, I was 17, I remember it very clearly, my parents were not political. They were really kind of Democrats. They just were regular Texans. But there was something burning inside me, something I was always thinking about, and it was about government. What about government and about being free? And we always, study that and we hear that in school, but what does it really mean? So I started studying it on my own. I started looking up books and reading about Murray Rothbard's book about classic liberalism, and then I got involved in politics. I started helping Ronald Reagan in '76 in a campaign. Thank you. I went to my first county convention, Republican county convention. Right after that, I was able to vote for Reagan when I was about 2 weeks when I was 18. But I say that because I wanted to encourage you to do the same thing. When I was in college, I joined young conservative groups and things like that, like I hope you guys are doing. But look, what is a conservative? Have you ever met a Republican that didn't say he was conservative? No, they all say they're conservative, and let me tell you, 90% of them are liars. They're liars. And I learned that over the many years of working with candidates, supporting them, donating lots of money. And I learned that most of it was going to waste. But let me tell you this. The most important thing you can do in your life is to have a good family. Family is the foundation of your education. It's the foundation of your health. It's the foundation of your faith. So forget about politics, really. A career in politics, a career politician, is a dishonorable career. Never have a desire to be a career politician. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking you want to be in power, you want to be in the cool club, you want to be making the decisions for people, you want to have a voice to be heard. The voice that you need to be heard is with your family and with your occupation. Be out there and be successful in life. I created my own business. I was successful, and I've got a great family. I've got a beautiful, perfect wife of 34 years. I've got 5 children. We homeschooled them to make sure they grew up in a Christian environment. I encourage you to do the same thing. And then you can get into the political realm. Then you can get into politics. But don't get into it until you understand the proper role of government. And you understand what it really takes. And I'm telling you, the thing you need more than anything to be in the political space or really anything in life is courage. Courage. I mean, courage is being able to do something when you're scared, when it's uncomfortable. And it's really hard. It's hard to stand up when everyone's telling you to sit down. It's hard to have an opinion that's different from everyone else's. If you don't have an opinion or a belief or a foundation, it doesn't matter. And that's my biggest battle in the Texas Senate when I was there for 4 years. Wasn't really with the Democrats. It was with the rhinos, the Republicans in name only. They're the ones who don't have the courage. They're the ones that always fault me. They would lie a lot. They'd lie so much they don't even remember what they were lying about. Let me just tell you a quick story. The first Republican Senate caucus meeting I went to, there's 20 of us. There's only 20 Republican senators in Austin. There's 18 now. We go to a restaurant, and my very first one in 2015, and we're all going to go around the table. We're going to talk about, what we want to get done and do a little business. And so I stand up my time. I'm nervous, very nervous. I'm scared. I got to have courage. So I stand up and I say, there's one thing we really need to get done this session. We need to get constitutional carry into law. It's a priority of our Republican platform. And I tell them about that. I tell them, the Constitution didn't have this in there till we go hunting. It doesn't have that in there so when we shoot a burglar, that's all real good. The Second Amendment is backstop against tyranny. Thank you. It's about stopping tyrannical governments. And we want to restore the liberties that have been stolen from us. And I said, I get it. If you don't want to vote for it, I understand, but I hope to persuade you otherwise. But the most important thing is let's get it to the floor and vote on it so everybody can see where you stand on this issue. You can be accountable to the voters that sent us here. And you know what I heard? Silence. Nothing. Then gradually, 1, 2, 3, 4 or more senators got up from the table and left. The rest of the night was real awkward. Then the next morning, a messenger comes to my office. And he says, hey, Senator Huffines, you need to apologize for what you said to the Republican Senate caucus meeting last night. I said, what did I say? And they said, you specifically said you're going to hold fellow Republican senators accountable to the voters. And I said, yes, I did. And I'm damn sure not apologizing. But I'm telling you that, thank you. I'm telling you that because you need to understand how hard these people work not to be accountable. It's not the votes they take, it's the votes they make sure they don't have to take. Most of the things you see in Austin, it's all for show. Don't go down there to Austin and run for office thinking that this is an honorable career. It's not honorable unless you know why you're there. I'm the only elected office holder in the history of the state of Texas that never took 1 penny from the government. No pay, no pension, no health care, no per diem, no reimbursement, nothing. Because I will never work for the government. I work for the people. Okay, guys. What is the proper role of government? It is a question that everyone in this country could have answered for 100 years. It's what the defenders of the Alamo knew intuitively and literally. They knew why they were there. They were there to defend their God-given liberties. Their liberties come from God and not the government. They knew that. When Travis drew a line in the sand and he said, all those that want to volunteer to fight for our liberty, come this way. And they all did. And they all died. 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, they all died. They died so Texas could be an independent nation. One that believed in liberty. Look at your coins. Every coin you have in your pocket almost will say liberty on it. Liberty. What does it mean? But really, what does liberty mean? We're so brainwashed in the preconceived ideas of socialism and Marxism. It has crept up and all over and has penetrated everything in our society, has penetrated our seminaries, has penetrated your schools, your teachers, your media, your television, your social media, our political space everywhere. It's penetrated everything, and it's making you believe in government. It's making you believe that government has the answers. It's making you believe that if you run for office, it's because you want to help people. You want to do something good for the community. That's not what government's about. Government's not here to help the community, to help you, to do. That's not what government's here. To protect you from government. The fundamental role of government is always to defend your liberty that comes from God. That's why we swear an allegiance to this little document. This was a very liberal idea in the history of the human race. Even today, you can't go to any country in the world and you ask people in that country, even in Europe or wherever, where does your liberties come from? Well, it comes from the government. They don't get it. Our founders did. It was classic liberalism. Study it. But you got to have the courage to fight for it. It takes courage to stand up. If you don't believe in anything, you don't have to worry about having courage. It doesn't matter. You can be like the rhinos down in Austin and in Washington. Be like them. They don't need courage. We're all the communist, the socialist. The socialist always leads to communism. It always leads to tyranny, and the horrors are unimaginable. They want to get there today. But a lot of people in our party, they want to get there next week. But we're all sliding down this slope, and at the bottom's the pits of hell. It's the pits of hell. It's tyranny. We got to stop it. And we will stop it. But keep in mind what we're here for. And I do have a ton of confidence in you. I really do. Because I know you know that. And if you could just go through life understanding the fundamental role of government. When people say that, oh, we got to do this, we got to do that. No, you don't. That's not what government's about. It's about always defending your liberty, your individual liberty, your personal liberty. You're going to make the best decisions of what's best for you in your life. Not 181 yahoos down in the swamp in Austin or the swamp in Washington. It's you. And it's with your personal decision is what matters. Millions of Texans making their own calls and their own decisions. It's what liberty's about. not government making those decisions for you. I want you to help me. Help me cut the chains of government. Help me awaken the sheep from their slumber to help us restore what's been stolen from us. Help us, help me, help you. Restore those liberties that have been stolen from us that we can get back. Our paradigm of the past and the paradigm of the present is not our future. It's not. We have unlimited possibilities. You have unlimited possibilities. Things can happen that you can't even imagine. Unimaginable prosperity when we get government out of the way. That can happen. And it's gonna happen. You know, in Texas, it's in our DNA. We know this. It's in our mind. It's in our heart. It's in our gut that we want to be free. We have the whole concept of rugged individualism is who we are as Texans. We were conceived on the breath and the blood of liberty. That's how we exist in Texas. That's what created us. It's never going to go away. We just got to keep fighting for it and understand what we're really fighting for. This is Texas. We will never bend a knee to no man, to no government, for no reason. We will not ask permission from the federal government for any reason, because this is Texas. Our greatest days are yet to dawn. You are the cavalry coming over the hill to rescue us. We need you. We need you to get motivated. We need you to get involved. Help me cut the chains of government. I love you guys. God bless you. God bless Texas for liberty, prosperity, and virtue. Thank you.
Sorry, y'all. I thought that was working. I was talking to myself for a second. Wasn't he wonderful? I just thought that was fantastic. All the speakers have been really great today. I'm really impressed. Well, we are about to have a panel coming up, and we are going to have a couple congressmen, and Christian is going to be leading the panel, so it's going to be very exciting, but we'll have a video to introduce them.
Howdy. Howdy.
Y'all having a good day? Hasn't this been awesome?
Well, it's truly an honor to have two amazing patriots that I get to interview, Congressman Randy Weber and Congressman Michael McLeod. Give it up for them. Two guys that they don't just, it's not just, the name conservative doesn't just mean something vague, but it's very specific. It's, you paint in bold colors, not pale pastels. They're the real deal. So I want to hear a little bit about your backgrounds, your bios. Tell us about how you got started and where you are now.
Well, thank you, Christian. I appreciate that. What a great intro. Appreciate that good intro. Did y'all enjoy Don Huffines a while ago? Tell you what, I could sit and listen to the senator all day, and like a lot of you, I thought we was going to have to. No, that's a joke, y'all. Some of y'all will get that later. Actually, Christian, thank you for the invite, by the way. I call myself a Christian conservative Republican, and in that order, by the way. You bet. Grown up on the Gulf Coast of Texas, down by Galveston, lived in a 20-mile radius, 68 years. I'm married to the cutest gal this side of the Atlantic. We've been, November 6th, we'll be married 45 years. Well, she's not here. She's doing some other stuff in the district. Give Brenda Gill a hand because she proves that love really is patient and long-suffering, you know. Owned an air conditioning company for 35 years, small business guy. Became a Republican precinct chair when Ronald Reagan ran for re-election. Got some precinct chairs here. When Ronald Reagan ran for re-election in '84, I've been at it a long time. I don't just say I'm a Republican. I have shoe leather, or should I say boot leather, to my gospel. And it is a great treat to be here. Thank y'all all for being here. This gives me hope. I have 3 kids and 8 grandkids. I'm glad you're here. Let's give Christian a hand for organizing this, can we? You bet. You bet. So with that, I'll yield to my good friend Mike Cloud.
Hey.
So, funny story I heard about Congressman Cloud, and he did this to me when I first met him too. I met him at a Trump rally, and I was in a room, and I said, "Hi, I'm Christian Collins. Nice to meet you." He just said, "Hi, I'm Michael." You know, well, what do you do, Michael? I'm a congressman. I'm like, you could have led with that. He did that to someone else here. It's like, oh, I'm just Michael. You know, and he's just so humble, and you can tell that that is a part of his Christian character. So I really appreciate that about you.
No, thanks. You've done a great job here. It's exciting to be a part. I can tell you, I was a born and bred church kid who did not imagine when I was a kid growing up that this is what I'd be doing as a career. Just 3 years ago, I was sworn into Congress, of course, and I had my hand, and we had the Bible open to the scripture that says, righteousness exalts a nation. And it's funny, while we were doing that, somebody made the comment, they said, we've never seen anybody get sworn in with the Bible open before. And I replied, that's funny, I think they work better that way. But I went to Oral Roberts University. I moved to Texas straight out of college as soon as I could to work at a church. I was a media director. I spent most of my time in a dark room somewhere away from the world. I went to vote one day, and somebody said, you should go to a precinct convention. I was like, what? Okay, you want to go? I'm like, sure. I don't know what that is, but it sounds great. I was not raised in a political family. I don't remember a political sign being in our yard. My parents were good citizens. They tried to vote. They loved America, all that kind of stuff. But I just went to participate one day. I went to my first state convention, came back, and we got involved just in the grassroots of getting people involved, getting people to vote, doing that kind of thing. And so I became a county chair. And we're executing elections, and I'm still working at the church. My wife is here, actually. She's over there. A little aside here, and some parents may kill me for this, but we met when she was 15 and I was 17. She's from Mexico, and we met over 3 days and had a long-distance relationship for 7 years. And of course, if my daughter, who's now 12, came to me 3 years from now and said she found the one, I'd be like, you're grounded till you're 35. That's what God had for us. And so I'm at the church, but I came to a point where my volunteer political work was interfering with my job. I was volunteering 20 hours a week, and the demands of working at a church. I thought Louis was funny yesterday when he mentioned, like, ministry is great prep for politics. You'd be surprised. But it came to a point where I had to choose, and nobody was putting that demand on me, but I just couldn't do good at both. And so, of course, what you do is lay down the volunteer job, right? But we prayed about it, and we felt a very clear no, and I did not know why. And so I remember going to my pastor, and he was really good with us, helped us have a transition, but I was, help me process this. And so ended up starting a small business, eventually continued to do the political volunteer work, was asked to run for Congress and thought, that's crazy, that's for other people. But we began to pray about it, and there's a whole series of steps we went through. But finally, I remember my wife saying, oddly enough, I have a peace about it. That's how it came about. It wasn't like, yeah, this will be fun. She's at home with 3 kids alone while I'm flying all over the place and doing great work. She's doing great work is what I'm saying. But the other thing that happened was 2 other things. I had told the story thousands of times of Benjamin Franklin coming out of the Constitutional Convention and being asked, do we have a republic or a monarchy? He said, we have a republic if you can keep it. And so now that story was kind of coming back to me, like, so what you going to do about it now, right? And then we were taken to scripture in Joshua 1, where you get through a few verses in Joshua 1, and God tells Joshua, he says, be strong and courageous. And then a few verses later, he says, be strong and courageous. And then you get to verse 9 and 10, and he says, haven't I commanded you to be strong and courageous? And I believe that we're in a season in our nation right now where God is saying, if you want to save your nation, this isn't a suggestion anymore. This is a command. I need people who are going to be willing to be strong and courageous wherever you are, in your schools, in your workplace. Be strong and courageous. And so that's kind of what prompted us to get involved in this. And it's been an amazing journey. I would have never imagined the season we're in our country when we got started. But that's kind of how we got going.
Well, thank you for that, Michael. I want to follow up with that too. So let me get my political incorrectness out of the way. I love Jesus Christ, okay? And I've never been shy about that. And let me just tell you, on July 2nd, 1973 at 5:30 in the afternoon, he saved me out of a life of drugs. Jesus is in the life-changing business. Can I get an amen? Okay. And if you haven't experienced his forgiveness and you want to go to heaven and he wants us all to do that, he's not willing that any should perish, then please find out what that means, because Jesus is awesome. I've never been ashamed of him. What does he say in the scripture? What does he say of him who's ashamed of him? He will be ashamed of me before his Father who is in heaven. He paid way too high a price for Randy Weber for me to ever be ashamed of him. To God be the glory. You bet.
So working in Congress, tell us some of the difficult aspects and dynamics of being in Congress and maybe working with some of your Republican colleagues and working with the Democrats, the pull of maybe leadership trying to get you to do something that maybe you don't want to do, or maybe it's a lobbyist getting you trying to do something that you don't want to do, and what it means to represent your districts with integrity.
You want me to go first? Well, let me say this. To represent our districts with integrity, first of all, Judeo-Christian values. This country was founded on Judeo-Christian values. When the righteous rule a nation, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people groan. Some of y'all know that scripture. We need to stay in the scripture daily. I catch a lot of flack by being vocal about my Christian faith. I don't mind telling you. I went to a prayer group in the Rotunda. By the way, how many of y'all have been to your United States Capitol? How many of y'all been up to that? That's a significant amount. It is your capital. We work for y'all. Please come to your capital in the Rotunda. It's a historic place, very historic. But I went to a prayer group there my second term, and I was almost the last one to pray, and I begged for God's forgiveness. You can find the video, and I said, God, forgive us. We are killing unborn. We're calling it a choice. Please, dear Lord, forgive us. We have trampled on the holy sanctimony of marriage. Please, we've called it an alternate lifestyle. We have trampled on, the borrower is slave to the lender, the proverb says. We have borrowed money this unbelievably, and we have just trampled on your word, God. Please forgive us. Let me tell you. That video went viral and people came. I was just sharing my heart. People came, the left came after me. My opponents the next election played that video over and over again, all because I want this country to be like God designed it to be. You bet, you bet. I owned an air conditioning company 35 years. As I said, married to the sweetest gal this side of the Atlantic. She was a fourth grade school teacher for 27 years. So we're family people. We're working folks just like y'all. Every time I vote, I think of families. I think of God's principles. I think of how this country ought to be. You know the scriptures. One of the more favorably, the famous quote of 2 Chronicles 7:14, to pray and get God to heal our land. Do we ever need that? I share that when I go talk to people. I've been in this church, Kristen, you remember, was it 3 years ago? And I said, you know what, if I had my way, we'd put the Bible back in school, we'd put the 10 Commandments up on the back wall, right? We'd put prayer back in school, the Pledge of Allegiance. We wonder why kids are taking guns and shooting people and killing teachers and stuff, because we're not teaching them about God and about righteousness. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to anybody. And so every time I vote, that's my background. Most everybody here cannot vote for me, because I'm down on the Gulf Coast between Galveston and Houston, Friendswood, Texas, those counties. Y'all can't vote for me, but trust me, I vote for you every day. You bet.
I think the biggest thing for me is just the constantly remembering why you're there and why you were sent there. Kaylee talked yesterday about for such a time as this, and for me, I didn't plan this. I didn't ask for this. My identity is not wrapped up in this temporary role. They say there's nothing more ex than an ex-congressman. And I don't know how long that's going to be, but eventually I'll be there. And what I want to do is be faithful for the time that I have with what God's put in my hands. And if I could say this to you just as young people, the big key is to be faithful with what God's put in your hands to do. I spent many years, like I said, working at a church, and my job was to be in an edit suite somewhere where I got no attention. I was in a dark room, no one saw me. They would see my work on a screen, but there was little actions before that. And I'm not saying being perfect. One of my favorite scriptures is in Proverbs. It says a righteous person falls 7 times, but they get up. The righteousness is in the getting up and continuing to press on. And so you're going to make mistakes. You're going to, look at yourselves and sometimes in the mirror and be, man, I have so much growing up to do. But continue to be faithful with what God's put in you. And I heard two people saying the challenges of standing up in a culture like today in schools. Just keep your eyes on the prize. And I can tell you, yes, elections are important, but I'm so much more concerned about when I stand before God one day and what He's going to say than any other, what anyone else has to say.
So being in the position that you're in, I'm sure you pride yourself on being good fathers and good husbands and being good, maybe if you have grandkids, or how do you keep the balance in life and keep the first things first, maybe God, family, and then your career, and how do you not wrap yourself up around that identity of being a congressman? Because if you're a man, sometimes it's you find purpose and value in your work, just like if you're a woman.
I just do what my wife tells me.
That's a zinger. Easy answer.
I was touring my district and I came across a T-shirt the other day. I texted it to my wife. She said I should buy a few of them and wear them every day. But the T-shirt said, "I don't always listen to my wife, but it usually goes better when I do." But there's no doubt having somebody standing by you in this really helps, who's aligned with the vision, and it's not my mission, it's our family's mission. Before I ran, we sat down with our kids and talked for hours about what it would mean, about what the cost would be. There'd be some neat moments, but there would be some cost as well, and those kind of things. But really having kind of a mission-oriented attitude about it. It's interesting, a lot of times in society, they try to separate the faith world from the political world. It's almost as if they haven't read the book, because the Bible is an extremely political book. And we could go 30, 40 minutes on that, but I won't. But it talks about, and I know, I've read through the Bible a couple times, and you read Leviticus, and it seems like really dry. But I can tell you it's a whole new light when you're a legislature and you're reading through, they're trying to form a country. They're trying to put things in, principles and processes in place that would help society grow and flourish, and all these different kind of things, chocked full of scripture, and so we've got to let that kind of invade every part of what we do. And it's interesting, when Christ came to earth and he gave his keynote address, he talked a lot about the kingdom. And so wherever you're at, work to build that kingdom, and try to be faithful to that. And part of that has to do with your family. I've just made a commitment when I got started that, you know, I'm going to be married and my kids are going to love me at the end of this. And we're going to make sure that happens and set aside the time to make that done. And it just means saying no and not having FOMO, you know. Just get focused on what God's called you to do and cut away the extraneous. Paul said, this one thing I do is pressing toward. You know, you got to set aside the things that hold you back.
Yeah, that's
sometimes are good things even.
That's a good word, Michael. It's exactly right. You learn to say no. Now, my beautiful bride, she's my best not so secret asset. If you see her, because I'm up here, she's down in the district working too, and so I love it when I get invites to speak to churches, because in case y'all can't tell, I'm not bashful about my Christian faith. And I love that. And Brenda Gale is down everywhere, and they get to see her at Chambers of Commerce. They get to see her all around the place. We don't have young kids. We have, of course, grandkids. We have 8 grandkids. And I'll show you. Would y'all like to see some pictures of my grandkids? And so I think it is a balance. Michael's exactly right. You keep your eye on the prize. You know who we serve. Are we going to stumble? We are going to stumble. But he's exactly right. Get up every time. And sometimes we just tell people no. And sometimes it's a wrestle, and sometimes they understand, sometimes they don't. But again, we prioritize. It's all about him and the life, the love of my life that he's given our kids and grandkids and the great country he's put us in charge of. And so you learn to make that balance.
That's good. That's good. So I asked you both a little bit, about your personal lives, but how did you meet your wives, and what can you tell young people about pursuing a life partner and soulmate? And he's probably going to have to expound on that a little bit, Congressman Cloud, but maybe, Randy, maybe you can share a little bit.
Okay. Boy, he asked the right question. So I'm at Alvin Junior College, and I'm in this cafeteria, and I'm playing spades with my buddies, and I see this gal walk in. And I told my friends, I said, look at those, with her best friend Martha, and I said, look at those 2 girls over there. And so she sat down and ate, got up to leave in about 20 minutes. I went, hey. I was bashful, you know. She came up to the table and she said, yeah. I said, what is your name? She said, Brenda Smith. I said, come on, what is your real name? She said, Brenda Smith. I said, well, Brenda, how about a date Friday night? It took me all of 20 minutes, right? So we went out Friday night, and she said, that's the corniest joke-telling guy I've ever been out with. I'm never going out with him again. She told her best friend, Martha. The only problem was I knew that was her attitude. Are you listening, Roselle? You can tell Brenda this. I knew that's her attitude. And she told Martha, when he calls me back for a second date, I'm going to turn him down flat. Problem was, I didn't call her that next week. She told Martha, the nerve, that guy didn't call me. Who does he think he is? 1 week turns to 2 weeks. She said, I can't believe he's not calling me. What's wrong with that guy? It goes to 3 weeks. So you know what happened? She called me. We've been together ever since.
Well played.
I told that to my 12-year-old son, Keith. He goes, Daddy, you were sneaky. That's how we met.
Yeah, so I think the message there is don't come on too strong, guys. Just play it cool. I love it. Congressman, do you want to expound a little bit?
I'm just thankful I have the mic today. One day you'll have to hear the story, the other side, I guess. But I was church involved in my youth group. We heard that there's this mission group going to be coming from Mexico. They were touring through the U.S. My wife is from Monterrey, Mexico. She's she's a citizen now, is at her citizenship ceremony, and that's a whole different story. We can talk about immigration, but now whenever we're in Corpus Christi and we pass the federal courthouse, and I'm like, that's where Mom became a citizen? Now they're like, yeah, we know, Dad, yeah. But again, she was 15, I was 17. Her church was on a tour. They stopped at our church for 3 days. She chased me around like crazy.
Okay, just know that he does have a couch ready. Just know.
No, this is embarrassing, but there's actually a video of right before we met. This is probably about 20 minutes before we met, and it's this wide shot of somebody else that was in the missions group from their church. Like, it's a wide shot of the whole gym where they were like taking their luggage out of the bus and putting it in there. But I'm in the back sitting on the gym, and if you look real carefully, you can see me in the back, and like she's walking across the gym, and I'm just like beelining across. About 15 minutes later, I was in the youth group, so I went and I introduced myself to some young man in the group. Hi, I'm Michael. He's like, oh, I'm Ruben, and he's like, hey, let me introduce you to my family. Went around, mom, sister. Oh, hi. We had a 7-year long-distance relationship after that. This is going to surprise you all, but there was a day there wasn't the internet. So this was actually before Al Gore invented the internet, and so we had boxes of letters and those kind of things. I remember when we could finally email. That was like, wow, this is amazing. But I'll say, I wouldn't recommend a 7-year long-distance relationship on everybody. It was its challenges, but that's what God had for us. But the thing through it all, we were like, God's our bond, and so we had that as kind of our mission through it all, and even in us getting married and now with 3 kids, and it's been 22 years now. Yeah, so a marriage, 7-year relationship before that, but it's, just be faithful what's in your hands to do. And I'll say this, I was, like I said, born and bred in the church, and you'd see people come up, and they're called to the fivefold ministry. Let's give them all a hand, and that's important. We need good pastors, good ministers. But the best thing you can do is the highest calling is obedience. So do what God's called you to do. Do it with all your heart. Do it with excellence. Be faithful in that circle that God's placed you in, and God will expand it as you're faithful.
What can you tell young people about the things that they need to be doing right now to make a difference? Because we have some young people that will be a state representative, a congressman, they're going to be elected leaders in the local level, they're going to be running for office, they want to be like you one day. So what do you tell young people?
That's scary.
That want to make a difference in our country and want to get to where you are? What advice do you have for them?
Kind of key to what I've been saying is understand the difference between prominence and significance. And if you would think back even 20 years ago, some of you might be able to name who won the Super Bowl. But if you would think back to the people who've made a difference in your life, you could each name very specific things. And so these positions, and especially in our culture today, in the Instagram world and everything like that, we look to be prominent when God wants us to be significant, and look for ways to make a difference. When I was a county chair, it was kind of a weird, it was just our simple slogan, just make a difference. Do what you can, and be faithful to it. Work hard. Scripture tells us, study to show yourselves approved, a workman who doesn't need to be ashamed. It takes hard work. It takes time to develop yourself, and be faithful to those things.
Good. That's a good word from Michael. And I would add, it's not about you. It's never been about me, never been about Michael. It's not about you. Learn that. It's about him. It's about staying focused.
That's good.
Get in the Word. Stay in the Word. Steep yourself in the Word. What did Jesus say? Blessed are you when men utter all manner of evil and revile you, when you're persecuted for righteousness' sake. I'll tell you, as a Christian in Congress, in case you can't tell, boy, they come after us big time, big time. Have thick skin, stay focused, stay on your knees, work like it's all up to you, pray like it's all up to God. Don't ever get dissuaded. The most often repeated command in the Bible, do you know what it is? Fear not. You got it. Absolutely. Don't be concerned when people, one day I came home and I was telling them, I go, God, they're saying, I met a gal in the grocery store and she said such bad things about what I did the other day. And Brenda goes, don't worry about it. She's just repeating what everybody else is saying. I'm like, what? What? Little joke there. But don't let it get to you, because I've read the book. We win in the end. Have y'all read the back of the book? You bet. You betcha. You betcha. One final caveat. You're going to hear from the left and the liberals and those who want to turn this country into, and how many of those want this country to be socialism? No. You're going to hear from them. Listen, when you get ready to run for city council, like you talked about, Christian, or school board, and some of y'all will, there may be some school board members and city council members here now. You're going to hear the socialists and the liberals and the communists and most of the Democrats say, well, listen, that really is a nonpartisan position. So you don't worry about if it's Republican or if it's Democrat. That's wrong. They are busy, I've watched this for a long time, trying to get Democrats, socialist-minded Democrats, on the school boards, on city councils, because they will move up to county commissioner, to state rep. I was in the state legislature for 4 years before I got demoted to Congress. And they know that those people who move up that line become members of Congress, and they will vote on national policy. Don't be dissuaded. Don't be discouraged. Don't be fooled. Roll up your sleeves, go to work, because our God is an awesome God. This country is worth saving, and we are depending on y'all.
If I could add something to that, because he said something that's so important. Randy said something that's so important, and you've got to realize that there is an all-out attack and assault to own you. To own your mind, to own your ideology. When you get
Charlie Kirk said that.
Yeah, when you get to college, you're going to get invitations to credit cards galore. They want to own your finances. They want to have you bound. And so you have got to prepare yourself now and to put the stuff in. And a lot of times when we're thinking about where should I go or what my career should be, we're thinking on the external a lot of times. And we do have to do things. We have to put the resumes out there. We have to show up. Decisions are made by people that show up. But God cares more about where your heart is than where your body is. And so you've got to prepare yourself. I think it was Lincoln said, I will study, I will prepare, my opportunity will come. Study, prepare, put the stuff in, sharpen your mind, read. I heard someone the other day said, America is functionally illiterate. And it's not that we can all read by and large, the vast, almost 100% literacy rate, but we don't read anything of significance. We don't read anything that actually makes us smarter. We read the headline, we read the tweet, we do those things. So study, sharpen your mind, make sure your heart's in the right place. Study theology, because it should inform your public policy, all these kind of things. It should intentionally develop a worldview. As you're preparing and you're learning to be engaged and you're volunteering and you're knocking on doors, making phone calls, putting out signs, doing all those kind of things, also be sharpening yourself for that day when it's your turn.
And if I may add one more thing, Charlie.
And it's your turn now in a lot of ways.
That's right. And Charlie Kirk said this, if you think back with when he was talking. Surround yourself with how many people? You got it, 5 people. Like-minded, those who will build you up, those who love the Lord Jesus Christ, those who will make a positive influence in your life. Never be ashamed and never look back.
And if I could add something there, if you have friends that are gossiping about other people and talking smack about other people, chances are they're doing the same thing about you behind your back. So it's important that you use discernment on who you surround yourself with. Don't surround yourself with people that don't really want to see you advance and reach God's destiny for your life or purpose. Surround yourself with people that will push you closer to God and push you closer to His purpose for your lives, and that want to see God's best for you. And that includes your spouse, your wife, husband, or whatever, but that also your friends. If you can die with 5 close friends, that is a successful life. More than money or anything else, that's a successful life. So we've got to do everything that we can to find the right people to surround ourselves with. Well, I want to give them the parting word. Anything maybe in the next 30 seconds to a minute that you can tell young people to go out and do to make a difference.
Yeah, a lot of times recently I've been asked, do we have hope as a nation? And I really began to think about that and meditate on that scripture. And how many of you heard that scripture that says, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to give you hope in the future? that came across in a season where the Israelites were going into captivity. They were going into the Babylon. If you read that chapter, in the next chapter, it says, we're going to, go ahead and build cities, work for the peace of your city, marry your kids, build businesses, do all those kind of things. One day I'm going to bring you back to your land and everything will be restored. And so I began to look and see, what happened between the promise and the fulfillment of that? And that's where we get these neat stories, like when they passed a law and said, you can't pray anymore, Daniel said, I'm going to pray anyway, even if it means the lion's den. They built a statue and said, everybody in society must bow down or face death. And then you had 3 young people who stood up and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they said, we don't care if we go to a fiery furnace, we are going to stand anyway. And then, we talked about this yesterday with Miss Kaylee, Esther was there during that season. And I charted it out. I looked at BC, what year all this stuff happened. And then you have Esther, her people were condemned to death. Her entire people was condemned to death, but she believed she was called for such a time as this. And in one day, everything turned around. And instead of being condemned to death, they were completely restored and took a great advantage. And so that's the season we're in our nation, where we need young people to stand up and to be bold and to have the courage. And you're going to take some slings and arrows. But if we do that, I believe that you will see an amazing blessing on your life, but we will also see this nation restored.
Michael's exactly correct. Y'all know that. You're here in Mims Church. This is a great church. And give Christian Collins a hand for putting this together. So here's my question going forward. You're here today. Obviously you care. Michael said this, the world is run by those who show up, okay? You know that. You're here to make a difference. You have friends. You're going to have another one of these events down in McAllen coming up, what month is that? In the fall. I asked my grandfather, when he was born, he told me, in the fall, I think, So I get that. But sometime in the fall, there will be another event like this. Are you telling your friends about these kinds of events? And are you bringing them with you? Are you offering to go pick them up? You don't have to preach a sermon to them, tell them that we're in the process of saving our country, although you are. But be engaged. Don't lose heart if they tell you no. Sometimes it takes 3 weeks to get a call back. I'm just saying. So some of y'all will catch that later. But it's worth it. Work hard, be diligent, stay focused. It is worth it. Our God is worth honoring, our country is worth saving. Do your due diligence, stay focused, stay on track. I look out here and Michael, I know we're given such great hope and confidence in what we see. Carry that banner loud, high, proud. Bring others with you. The country depends on you all. God bless you all.
Let's give it up for them one more time.
Leave this here.
I'll take it. Well, we're going to go have lunch, and if you want to take a couple pictures with the congressman, you're welcome to. We're going to go have lunch. So there's food courts outside, but you can't eat it in the sanctuary. But you can have the food